And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
A good friend and brother to the podcast, Stephen Lee. What's up, man? What's going on?
How you doing?
So happy to have you here today. Let's get right into it. Tell us why you became a cop.
Why I became a cop? To be honest with you, it's my mom. My mom actually went to go see a fortune teller. She's superstitious, and the fortune teller told her that my faith in life was to become a city official or whatever. So she was like, "You like hanging out in the street? You like helping people? You may as well get paid for it. Go be a cop." So, and also 9/11, we had a big thing to do with it, and my daughter being born, I wanted a stable job. So, yeah,
absolutely. So where'd you start off, Steve? Where was your first? Where'd you first go out of the academy?
6-7, East Flatbush in Brownsville. Yeah, a real house. Stayed there for 8 years, and the only way out was promotional tests or IAB or narcotics. Yeah.
So and then what made you want to? So you obviously became a sergeant at that point. What did you want to be a sergeant, or did you enjoy your time in the 6-7? Like what made you decide to want to take the promotional exams?
I loved it in 6-7. Like in hindsight, I mean, being there at that time, it's like there was no days off. It was like you were getting kind of burnt out and everything. But looking back at it, it's one of the best commands I worked at, the best people I worked with. One of the main reasons why I became a sergeant was bad bosses. Yeah, big inspiration.
So your inspiration for leadership was you saw ineffective leadership, right? So what would you say some of those things were that you saw? Because I talk about this all the time. I'm a huge advocate for leadership. I think leadership is the most important facet to an organization. So what are some things that you saw? Was it on a personal level, or just what did you see that you thought was bad, reflective of bosses that you wanted to? Why, like, as your motivation to be a boss yourself? What did you see that was bad?
Couple of things. Inexperience, one. Some people that are like house mouses their entire life. People that were like in internal affairs their entire life, whatever, never been on patrol, never been in a busy house, and then coming into a busy house and telling cops what to do or how to do it, and that's not the way you do it. The other thing is personality-wise, they're just like bullies. So combination those two are deadly. Like it's really morale crushing. Yeah.
So Steve, when you got promoted, where'd you go? Where'd you end up going?
Ended up coming to the 109 precinct. It's a predominantly Asian neighborhood. So I went from policing East Flatbush and Brownville. It was around where I grew up in Brooklyn, right? I grew up in Flatbush. So ended up policing West Indians all the way to Asians. So now the neighborhood is predominantly Chinese and Korean, and it's where my family shops. They go to the supermarket. I hang out sometimes. It's my own community now, and that's one of the big things why I wanted to become a cop was because I wanted to help my own community. It's nice helping other people. It's nice helping other communities and stuff like that, but to really hit your own community and help your own people, it's a big thing, especially when I speak Chinese, right? I speak Mandarin, so I'm able to communicate with them when other cops are not, and it really hits home. It's like kind of like helping your own family, like helping your own mom and stuff like that. Yeah.
So did you request the 109 precinct then because it was Asian community, or just it was handpicked for you?
Yeah, I did.
You picked it. All right. So since you worked in the 109 precinct, it's your community. You get to. Do you think, right? Because that's part of what we talk about the DI movement, and we hear from Eric Adams and this administration that they want people that are conducive, that fit that community to work there.
Right.
Do you think that helped you, or do you think that made it harder for you because now you're working with your community? Do you think it helped you because you understand that community, or do you think it made it harder because now you have more compassion and maybe more of an intimate understanding of that community?
I think it helped me more than it did hurt me. I could see the negative part of it is that, yeah, you're kind of like, your judgment's kind of clouded, right? Whereas like you see the community as family members now, and it's like, oh, I don't want to enforce this on somebody, but you got to understand, you got a job to do, and that's your job, right? The other thing is that the cops that I investigated in the 109 were of that community also, right? So it's like, if you're too close to the community, you're easily corrupted because they suck you in, right? You sit down, you're able to relate to them more, and then you end up becoming friends with them and their family. You sit down at family dinners now. You're sitting at free dinners. You're sitting at free events. You're going on vacation with them and stuff like that. And then when they ask you for a favor, do you have the heart to say no?
I mean, listen, I agree with you. I think, I never wanted to work in Staten Island, but I just got sent there out of the academy. And then that's where I was living at the time. And I looked at it as a great honor to actually serve in Staten Island. It's something that I actually grew to love. But, a lot of the kids I grew up with got involved in things that they shouldn't have gotten involved with. And, some of them would say, oh, we're on opposite teams now. And I would just say, no, you're just a moron. Like, we're not on, there's no team here. It's either you're doing the right thing or you're not, And so, like, a lot of the kids I grew up with got into things that I winded up having to lock people up, do search warrants on things, I wasn't happy about it. And I think it could lead to corruption in weaker people, in people that are afraid and people that are scared. But I agree with you. I think, serving your community, where you live, where you grew up, if it happens to be your ethnic group, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the things with the Asian community or any community that doesn't traditionally speak English. There's a lot of crime that I'm not able to get to. Eric's not able to get to. People that don't speak, any type of the Asian languages like Mandarin, Fukienese, Cantonese, whatever that may be. Like, there's a huge language barrier, and I dealt with that a lot when I got promoted and I was in the 6-6.
Right.
But we just had this corruption scandal break out. And it's not new to you, this corruption scandal. We had a corruption scandal in the NYPD where it's alleged that the police commissioner's brother was operating a protection extortion racket in the NYPD. So in the 109, could you just tell us what you experienced and what actually happened that caused you to go from working in the 109 to now being an undercover for the Internal Affairs Bureau in the NYPD?
Sure. So it was shortly after I went to the 109, right? Went to the 109. I did crime analysis there. I did midnights, day tours for the 12s. And this is all within like a couple months. Got shifted around. Then I end up doing condition/crime because the crime sergeant had left, and I was doing both teams. My team was doing both things, right?
Yep.
My special ops lieutenant was Lieutenant Robert Sung. Those that know him, he's known as the general, or an a-hole, right? He was my special ops lieutenant. I had a new commanding officer come in. The new commanding officer was Thomas Conforti, Captain Conforti at the time, and the PBA's delegates had actually brought him in to the precinct because the morale of the precinct was really low. The lieutenants were running the show in the 109 at the time, and if you weren't in the clique with the admin lieutenant or in the clique with the 412 lieutenant or so forth and so on, you wouldn't get your days off. You wouldn't get the details you wanted or whatever. Your life was miserable. You get all the shitty details and stuff like that. So the morale was really low, and they complained to the PBA delegates. The PBA delegates pulled in Conforti. Conforti had a bone to pick with these lieutenants because he used to be a lieutenant in the squad upstairs, and then he came back as a captain now. So he's the CO. He got a bone to pick with them. A lot of them weren't happy, so a lot of lieutenants transferred out. My special ops lieutenant did not transfer out. He's Korean. I was driving him to the pizza shop one day, and he's like, "Yo, Steve, we gotta do something about this guy. We gotta, get rid of him." And I was like, "Why don't you make a phone call? Because he's well connected." And he's like, "No, that won't work. He's well liked up top too." So he was like, "We gotta do something else." I was like, "Do something else? Like, what are you talking about?" And he's like, "I don't know. You know these girls when you do these checks. You know these girls from the karaoke's and stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And he's like, "Yeah, we need to find one of them and say that he raped her." And I'm like, "What?" This guy is bugging out. I thought he was just venting, or maybe he was pissed off. You know how like sometimes people over exaggerate, or they're like, they didn't mean what they say, whatever. So I gave it a week. I'm like, I let it go. I let it slide. The whole week though, hounding me. Yo, Steve, you found a girl yet? I was like, found a girl for what? And he's like, for the rape thing, to get rid of Conforti. And I'm looking at him like, yo, this guy is fucking serious, So the next week, I walk into my CO's office because, I gave him some time to cool off, right? And he's obviously for real. So I walk into my CO's office, knock on the door. It's like, "What's up, Steve? Come in." I close the door behind me and I go, "Listen, boss, can we have a man-to-man? I know there's no such thing as off-the-record conversations, all right? Don't believe what anybody tells you. There is no such thing as off-the-record conversations. I don't care. You think, oh, it's the right things, the locker room talk, whatever. No, those days are gone, all right?" So I'm like, "Look, let's talk man to man. Want to have an off-the-record conversation, He's like, "Yeah, what's up?" I'm like, "Somebody's trying to jam you up, all right?" Like, "Okay, yeah, tell me what it is so I can protect myself." And so somebody wants to put fake rape charges on you, right? He goes, "Oh, can you let me know who it is?" And I'm like, "Look, I don't want to get involved because he has hooks, you have hooks. I don't have any hooks. I just barely made it in here. I liked being here because it's only 5-minute commute from my house. I lived in the 111 at the time, right? So the 5-minute commute from my house. I'm policing my own neighborhood now. I came from East Flatbush and Brownsville, two-hour commute, busy command to a nice landing spot. You know what I mean? So I like to work here." And he's like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. If I say his name, right, just give me a nod." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "Bobby." I'm like, "Yep." He's like, "All right, cool. Thanks."
He was the first person that he said it.
Yeah. Well, actually, his second name. First name was something else, and then he gave me his second name. I think the first name was just throw me off. Was a test, and the second name was, he said it, Bobby. And I'm like, "Yep." He's like, "All right, cool, thanks." And he wasn't even surprised, right? So I walk out. Next week, calls me in. He goes, "Lee, come here." I'm like, "All right." I walk into his office and he's like, "Listen, I know you didn't want to get involved, but I had to drop a log with internal affairs to protect myself. And they want to know if you go undercover and get some recording." I go, "Do I have a choice?" He's like, "No, not really. You don't tell internal affairs no." I was like, "All right, so I'm being voluntold. What do I do?" He's like, "All right, on your RDO, they'll come to your house and they'll interview you. It's going to be a Sergeant Owens and a Lieutenant Seeger. They'll come and interview you and, find out what's going on." Cool. My RDO comes. I swing out. They come to my house. They interview me. Okay. Next day, they come back again, interview me again, but they bring the CO, Inspector Pena. Inspector Pena was actually cool. He heard my story. He seemed very excited about it. He had me sign some kind of like paperwork that was supposed to protect me or something like that. I never got a copy. I had no idea what the fuck I signed, right? And that was that. After that, shortly, he got transferred out. I don't know what happened to him.
I mean, that's crazy. So you get to the 109, you're there. You're obviously well liked because you're in special operations at that point, and then your lieutenant asks you to find a female to accuse the new commanding officer of rape. I mean, like, what was going through your head at that time?
What was going through my head at the time? Couple things. I was dating a girl at the time, right? A stripper, and she was very low self-esteem. Where, like, she constantly accused me of having too many female friends and so forth and so on. Conforti came into the precinct with his family all the time, his wife, his son, right? And I was thinking, poor guy, man. Even if it's not true, or even if it's proven not true, the stigma of it is there, and his life would never be the same, right? His wife will always have that thought in the back of her head, like, what if this is true? What if he is effing around behind my back or something like that? And I think that's just crossing the line. You know, there's certain things that you guys want to box it out in the locker room, not a problem. You know what I mean? You want to fight in the smoker, not a problem. You want to make a phone call, all right, that's the game, right? But putting fake rape charges on somebody, that's just a big no-no. I think that's no good.
So, Steve, here you are, right? You're in a precinct. You're there a short time, but obviously they saw that you're a good cop, right? I mean, and here you are, a newly promoted sergeant within a short amount of time. You're doing special operations, you're doing conditions. So we always hear grumblings, right? We always hear rumors, scuttlebutt that's going on in precincts, right? Cops talk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So at this time, with the knowledge that you've gotten, right? You've sat with the special ops lieutenant. This is what he's telling you. You spoke to the commanding officer. What are the grumblings? What are the rumors that you're hearing at the command at this time? What are you hearing? And based on that conversation you had, and also with the commanding officer, with all the rumors that you're hearing, what rumors were you hearing? At this point, did you think that there's actually something going on, that the lieutenant is trying to get the CO? Did you think it was possibly a test to see if you're on board or not? With all the rumors and what you're hearing at this point, putting everything together, what was your assessment?
Yes, the rumors were that the lieutenant and a couple of other officers from the previous crime team who are like in the squad now, stuff like that, and they used to be very close with the bars, right? The karaoke's and all that stuff. And whenever the Midnights tried to enforce, because I did the Midnights also, right? So a lot of the cops, when I did the Midnights, they would complain because, like, if they do a car stop or they got a DWI or, you know, they're doing an inspection or they get 911 call for assault at one of these karaoke spots, they'll get a phone call right away and be like, yo, that's my spot, do the right thing, stay away, blah, blah, blah. And they complained a lot, and they were like, yo, I can't do any enforcement. You know, you want me to get my activity, but every time I pull somebody over or every time I try to get an arrest or something, I'm getting a phone call, you know, and it's hard to enforce. It's hard to get my activity. And, you know, that was the main complaint. I didn't like it. There was also later on during my operation, another lieutenant came to the precinct. His name was Lieutenant Ho. He came from IAB also. I think he was in group 25 or group 26, not too sure. But they didn't like him there. He got promoted to lieutenant, came to 109, and he was actually threatened by Lieutenant Sung, meaning like he said to him, you don't stay away from these fucking places, I'm gonna fucking come and kill your family, right? And the only thing that he was doing, he was, you know, he's a buff. He was sitting at the bus, at the stop signs and stuff like that, and waiting for patrons to come out to karaoke, and he sees that they're like, you know, driving erratically or whatever, he'll pull them over and get a DV and, you know, assign it to somebody on patrol, people that needed it, right? And the lieutenant didn't like that because these places were paying them off to protect the place and protect their customers, you know. So
what did you guys think about it? Like, what was the consensus? Was it that the general, or whatever the hell you guys called him, was it that he was being paid by these bars, or he was friends with the bars? Like, what?
Nobody knew at first. Nobody knew. People just think that, you know, it's like these places that do the right thing, like Salty Dog or something like that, right? Cops not going to go and enforce that Salty Dog in Brooklyn because they do the right thing, right? Or Con Frito. Nobody in the Bronx can go to Con Frito and enforce there, right? Because they're supposedly doing the right thing. But they don't know because everybody got their blinders on. They don't want to know. They don't want to investigate.
What do you mean? What do you mean by like do the right thing? Like they're hooking cops up, they're letting them in for free. Like that's what you mean, right?
Yeah. Well, there's no cover charge, but when they go there, they'll get free drinks, free bottle service, you know, because karaoke rooms, right? So the setup is different. You get a private room, or you can sit. Some places have a bar you can sit at, but most of the cops get a private room. In this private room, you have a mommy son. A mommy son is, Eric would know. A mommy son would be a female.
Well, he would.
I know what mommy sons are, and we spoke about.
I don't know
boys.
what a mommy son is, so if you could explain it, I appreciate it.
It's a female pimp, and she'll walk in and she'll line up the girls in the room, and you sit there and you pick a girl. And these are hostess girls. We call them PRs, public relation girls, right? They'll come, they'll sit with you, they'll drink with you, they'll stroke your ego. They'll like, oh, you're so good, you're so handsome, stuff like that. They'll drink with you and want to get you drunk.
They'll tell me I have nice hair. They like my hair.
Yeah, they love your hair.
These aren't lady boys, John. Just like when I let you know, John, not lady boys, so you might not like them, but
yeah. I'm not the one who keeps going to the countries where they're at.
When he says do the right thing, he doesn't mean get you a lady boy. Yeah, Steve. Sorry, brother.
Yeah, no. But to regular customers, some of them were engaged in prostitution, right? They'll talk out a deal with you, and then if they like you, whatever, they'll go home with you, they'll sleep with you, and you pay them extra. As cops, though, since the owner wants to get nice with you and let you have a good time, where it's worthwhile for you to come back, they'll pay the girls and tell them, go home with him, sleep with him, make sure he's happy and stuff like that. And meanwhile, you're thinking, oh, this girl likes me. I'm like, PIMP here. I'm taking her home, and so forth and so on. I'm getting lucky and everything. But meanwhile, it's the owner that's paying the girl to go home with you, to sleep with you, and stuff like that. This way, you're like, oh, I had a great time at Jimmy's Place, at CEO. I had a great time, blah blah blah, stuff like that. So next time you get a 911 call there, or next time there's enforcement that's being done there, or you see narcotics in the area and they're gonna go to that place to enforce, you're gonna probably give them a heads up and be like, yo, I heard so and so is gonna go enforce there today. Narcotics doing raids, Vice going out doing raids or whatever, blah blah, or the conditions team going out, they're doing checks. And the conditions team, people sometimes go out there too. And so it's like, they don't want to enforce now.
So let me ask you this, Steve, right? Because most of our listeners are active or retired NYPD, but we built a network here. We have a lot of people that listen, friends to this podcast, that are law enforcement throughout the entire country. We have a lot of people that are not law enforcement, and but they're friends and they support the podcast. So if we could just explain to them, were some of these places considered off-limits locations? And the reason why I want to say that is because I'm trying to figure out, was the integrity control officer in on this also, or was he also not in on it? Because to me, these places would be deemed off-limits, right? Just the appearance of impropriety. And we know, I can tell you right now, if you pretty much no one in the NYPD is ever going into the CIA, no one there could keep a secret. You tell one cop one thing, the entire police department's going to know. So I would assume there's a lot of grumbling, a lot of talk about these places. Were these places deemed off-limit locations, or was the integrity control officer in on this also?
None of these places were deemed on.
And if you could explain to the public what is an off-limit location, so they can understand what we're talking about here.
All right, so you have off-limit locations. Off-limit locations are places that I believe the command, people that are assigned to that command, cannot go to. Then you have unlawful locations. Unlawful locations are places that no one in the police department can go to. All right. These places were not on those lists. The places that were on the list for off-limit locations were like a pizza shop and stuff like that, because supposedly they had mob ties and they were giving out free pizza, or like places that are giving out free coffee and stuff like that. But the ICO, yes, to answer your question, was in on it. His name is Lieutenant Dolphin. I believe he's still in the job. He's probably still in the 111 or something like that. He was in the 109 as the ICO lieutenant. His brother was known to have mafia ties, and like in the neighborhood in Howard Beach back in the day, if you wanted to get drugs, you go to his brother and get it. He was put there by Internal Affairs when the first two cops got arrested. There was a Polish and a Korean cop from the conditions team that got arrested for trying to rob a massage parlor for $1 million in cash. So what happened was, this massage parlor was not on the up. they had, I believe it was like 600,000, 700,000, something close to $1 million in cash. And they wanted to go in there. They flipped the place over in uniform. Went there, tossed the place, couldn't find the money. They left. They told them, look, you guys better have the money when we come back. So they in turn call the feds because they know somebody at the feds or whatever. They call the feds. The feds tell them, yeah, come back. Tell them you got 10 grand for them, whatever. They tell them to come back, and they got arrested. In the news, it said that they were trying to, it wasn't extortion, but it was like failure to pay the massage worker or whatever. The reason why I know this because one of my CIs told me the story where the reason why they couldn't find the money is because the money was hidden in the ceiling panel. And the reason why that story happened was because he also told me how they used to rob gambling houses in uniform, where if you and your boys are having like a high stakes poker game, right? They'll come in uniform and act like they got a 911 call, like a dispute. They'll go there. They'll come in, tell everybody to empty out your pockets. You sitting there, you're thinking you're getting raided, and you see cops in uniform, you're obviously going to comply, right? You take out your ID, you put your cash on the table and stuff. They'll take all the cash. They'll take pictures of all the IDs, and then they'll just leave with the cash, and that's it. No arrest, no nothing. Didn't vouch in the money, like the sheriff's office don't vouch in the money, don't know how much money was vouched, don't know how much money was taken, and it's gone. Yeah. But yes, the ICO was in on it. And the ICO actually got the heads up in the middle of our operation and got transferred to the 111 and became the SOL over there. And then sent my daughter to the psych ward because my daughter goes to the school in the compounds in 111.
Steve, before John goes to his question, I just want so our audience understands because there's a lot of layers to peel. There's a lot going on with this. Mm-hmm. You got a great story. So the karaoke bars and the massage parlor, is there a connection between the two?
All of it's connected. All of it's connected. So all of it is run by Asian gangs, right? So at the time, you had 3 major Asian gangs that were running Flushing. And the organized crime in the Chinese society, in the Chinese culture, it's not like black gangs or Spanish gangs. They don't operate on the street. They don't hang out in the street. They're not, shooting each other all over the place and stuff like that. Because the reason why is they know if there's too much heat on them, nobody's going to be making money, right? And it's going to endanger the operation. So they rather work together. So it's like, okay, I do sex workers and prostitution. You do crystal meth. You do ketamine. You do illegal gambling. You do, liquor stuff, whatever. You do construction. So they also have legit businesses. And this is where Winnie Greco and everybody else comes into play, right? And the donations to the politicians, right?
Don't jump ahead here. Don't jump ahead. Let's stay on target.
Sorry. So yes, the Asian gangs.
You got a lot here.
you have the karaoke's. That's the legit business, and then the underground part of it is the prostitution that goes on in the drugs, right? The human trafficking part. The sex workers and all that stuff, they funnel their money to the karaoke's or whatever, or they're funding the money to the internet cafes, and some of them will do it to the construction companies. So one major gang was real estate developers. Another one was internet cafes that sell crystal meth. The real estate developer ones were doing karaoke's and sex trafficking and stuff like that. The karaoke's would do drugs and sex trafficking and gambling. So, yeah. They're all linked in.
All right, so let's take it back now. Now, you get your lieutenant's pressuring you to put a false allegation on your commanding officer. You notify him. He notifies internal affairs, and now you meet with internal affairs.
Yes, sir.
So what happens from there? Could you bring us in on that meeting and then what you started to do from there? Because now it's like not only are you a cop, you're working to ensure public safety in on the streets of New York City, but now you're attempting to weed out corruption in the NYPD. Could you just walk us through that whole process and that time?
Yeah, very, very unofficial process. They come to your house. I sat in the unmarked, talked to them in unmarked, and then went about my business. When the operation did start, they gave me some devices, like covert devices. One looked like a USB thumb drive. One looked like a key card or whatever. They'll give me 3 or 4 devices, and the reason for that was just in case one fails, the other one could pick it up. Also, they wanted to put it on different parts of your body. This way, like if one picks it up unclear, the other one might be closer to the person and pick it up better. And then they'll actually do a bump. A bump is, when you go up to the target and you try to engage in a conversation and get certain things on tape. So at first they wanted me to do bumps on the lieutenant while we're at work. So now I'm a sergeant in uniform pretending to be a dirty cop that's, getting close to the lieutenant and trying to get him on saying the rape charge stuff, the false allegations. The problem with that was that it was always him bringing it up to me. Like I said, I was always avoiding him. So when I finally brought it up to him, he was a little like, alerted, a little drawn back on it. So then they were like, oh, hang out with him off duty. Go out drinking with him. Maybe when he's drunk, he'll get pissed off and he'll, be more loose and he'll say it better. So I'm like, all right, cool. So then when I start hanging out with him off duty, that's where we're in the karaoke bars and there's a bunch of cops now hanging out with gangsters and stuff like that. People, I know they're gangsters because when I did the checks and sometimes you see that they've been arrested before, who's who. If you're doing special ops, you're doing crime or like conditions, whatever, you know who the players are in the precinct, because it's always the same people get into trouble. All right. And then you start seeing other cops and gangsters hanging out together and having fun, whatever. And that's when I went back to IAB. I was like, look, whole can of worms you opening up here, man. You sure you guys want to do it? And they were like, yeah. Just go straight up to the commissioner. And I was like, yeah, but if I do it, I want to make sure that nobody else knows because I don't want to, get in trouble and the cover's blown and I get hurt. He's like, no, it's just me, which is Lieutenant Seeger, the sergeant that is signed, Sergeant Owens, my CO, and their CO, and then go straight up to the commissioner, which was, at that time, I thought it was Bratton, but apparently it wasn't Bratton, it was Resnick, right? And I believed it. Because, you're thinking IAB, they're the ones that squared away. They're by the book, right? They're the ones that police. And I was naive to believe it. Yeah.
So, Steve, at this point, I mean, this is an amazing story. And I'm trying to put this story in sequence because we don't want to miss anything.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, you're approached by Internal Affairs, right? And I would assume at this point that Internal Affairs does not approach you just based on this allegation that you alerted the CO that the lieutenant wants to put a fake a rape allegation charge. I would assume, but at this point, did Internal Affairs already have some information that there is potential corruption going on in this precinct? Was this additional information for something they were already investigating, or is it what your claim had brought this to light to have Internal Affairs approach you? I would assume that there's stuff going on, potential that they're already suspicious, potential corruption.
Right. So,
and there's an active case, I would assume.
Yeah. After the first 2 cops got arrested, the feds opened up a case, and Internal Affairs weren't investigating it because they weren't allowed to. The feds were, investigating it, and then they also only wanted me to stick to the administrative part of the lieutenant with the fake allegation. They didn't want to get into any criminality stuff, right? They wanted to isolate to only administrative charges. And then when I started getting a lot of stuff on
explain that. What do you mean they wanted? They didn't explain that. I don't understand that.
They wanted to just slap him on the wrist and transfer him out.
No, but so they're telling you to ignore criminality.
Yeah.
Like how does that conversation go? That they're telling you they only want to stick.
So when I told them, look, because at the time I'm like, look, I think there's stuff going on. I think they're raping girls in the bathroom. I think they're getting paid off by the the owners of the karaoke's and stuff like that. And they're like, don't worry about that. Just worry about the rape allegation. Until to the point where I got a lot of people on tape and I got a lot of more evidence of them doing stuff. And then they're like, all right, fine, investigate the lieutenant only. But then I was like, what about the chief? What about the chief's driver? What about the captain and stuff like that? And he's like, don't worry about them. Don't worry about them.
So internal affairs at this point. So let me get this straight so we can try to get the sequence of events so it makes sense. The 2 cops that are arrested that are investigated by the feds, that happened after the rape allegation, or that was before?
Before.
Okay,
that's
so
like in 2012, 2011, or something like that.
So at this point, internal affairs is not doing their investigation. So they want you just specifically to target the lieutenant to get him transferred, but they're not concerned with any potential corruption. Because as you said, I heard earlier, you said that this is starting to open up a can of worms. Do you really want to go there? So at that point, did they tell you no? Did they want to hit? Do they want to impede what you were doing or kind of curb you there? Like, what was the ultimate goal?
They told me yes. They told me, yeah, don't worry about it, because I don't think they realized just how big this was. Yeah. And then when they realized just how much this was spreading to, like, Chief Pizzuti was involved, there was a Captain Rubin, there's a Lieutenant Shea from Vice, there's a Lieutenant Kai from 72 Precinct.
Why are you saying they were involved though? Like what makes you say they were involved, and like what aspect? Like they knew what was going on, like what was going, like would they know? Would they know what were they involved in? Like what do you mean?
So Pizzuti was told about the operation when it first started. She then leaked it to her driver. Her driver then came and gave me the heads up because he didn't know that I was actually the one that was undercover. So when he was at one of the karaoke's one night, he was like, yo, Steve, come on in for a drink. And I'm in uniform talking to the bouncer because the bouncer was one of my CIs at the time. And I was like, no, I can't come in and drink. I'm working right now. And he's like, no, don't worry about it. I work for the chief. Don't worry about it. Come in for a drink. I got to tell you something. And I'm like, no, I'm good. He's like, all right, good. Good thing you don't want to come in because, IAB is watching you. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? IAB is watching me. At this time, I was undercover, right? And when he said that, it hit a nerve because, I was a little nervous already that my cover was going to be blown. So then he's like, no, listen, your CO came and talked to my CO, the chief and stuff like that, and told him that there's an operation going on with internal affairs and that these karaoke's are involved and stuff like that. And your name came up. And she pulled me to the side and asked me if you're a good guy or not, and whatever. And I told her that you're okay. And, she said to look out for you and give you the heads up. So, she knew what was going on. After that, and when I notified internal affairs about that, they stopped reporting to her about it. They got permission from the commissioner, from Resnick, and they stopped reporting to her. She was also getting money and free dinners and stuff like that, free perks from the driver. The driver's name is Robert Young, right? So Robert Young used to be another chief's driver also, and he got jammed up before for something like this too. But then he went back now and became Chief Pizzuti's driver. And he's now working at the police academy where I used to work. But yeah, he's one of the dirtiest guys you'll know. If you're like an Asian Jade or you're like one of the Asian cops, you act any Asian cops that know him, they'll tell you stay away from that guy. That guy will jam you up.
So, Stephen, I know you said you're pretty much at this time voluntold, but when internal affairs comes to your home, at that point, I mean, you could have said, listen, I'm not doing this, right? You could have said, no matter what, I'm not doing this, but you decided at this point you want to do the right thing. So what did they do to incentivize? Like, was there any promises to you? Hey, like, if you do this, we're going to give you something, a promotion. What was promised to you? Was there any promises? And also with that, what protections were provided for you to make sure that you're safe and that your protection is not blown? Were you wired up? Like, what protections were provided for you to make sure you're protected in this precinct? And what was incentivized for you to do this? If there was?
There were no incentives at first. I did it because it was the right thing to do. I didn't want any person to be accused of fake rape charges or any fake crimes, right? later on down the line, when we started seeing that there were cops getting paid off and stuff like that, and the work was getting real, they came out and said, "Oh, you're gonna get SA pay out of this. You can get detailed choice and stuff like that." Because I'm gonna be like, "Yo, after all this, man, I'm not gonna be able to work here anymore because, you know, people are gonna know." Originally, the plan was I was supposed to get arrested with them, and then I would beat the department charges, and then get transferred back to the 109, so I could stay. But obviously, that did not happen. What ended up happening was they put my name on the paperwork and everything, and then they just wiped me from the system. And, you know, the delegate was like, "What the fuck happened to Stephen Lee? Like, where is he? Why is he not in the computer no more?" You know, stuff like that. But yeah, there was no incentives at first, but then later on after that, they were like, you know, SA pay and detailed choice.
So I mean, I'll be honest. The whole thing sounds very Mickey Mouse from the get-go, like the whole way they went about it. I don't know that I would have did it. I commend you for reporting it. I don't know that I would have trusted them at that point to go undercover. Were you scared at that time for your life? Were you scared for your safety? Were you scared for your job? Like,
yeah,
I mean, because I'm scared just listening to it, and I already know how it turned out. You know,
yeah.
And what about even the reporting? Like, you know, like before you even went to the commanding officer, like how was that? Was that a scary process? Like all this stuff is, you know, because again, we consistently say that the Internal Affairs Bureau has more leaks than the Iraqi Navy. And, you know, and I mean,
I wish you would have told me that before I went on the cover. I didn't know that. I found that out myself when the operation was leaked twice. Right, the first time was the chief's driver. The second time was actually another IAB sergeant. Right, and it was leaked from the IAB lieutenant, who's now the CO of the 5th precinct. Right, so this lieutenant, he was in group. He was either leader of group 26, the other group leader of 26 or 25 or something like that. And he's in the Agent J Society. So the Agent J Society, they talk. You know, sometimes they tell him, "Look, there's operation going on and something to do with prostitution. So if you guys are into that kind of stuff, stay away from, you know, 5th Avenue for now." Stuff like that, right? So the sergeant I knew when I was working in Brooklyn, I'm not going to give any names, right? If you know, you know. But the sergeant I knew, he was a cop at the time. We were doing CRV together all the time. That's how we knew each other. And then he became a sergeant. I became a sergeant. He went to Brooklyn IAB. I went to 109. And he was doing overtime. And they were busting massage parlors at the time for overtime in the 109. And he sees me in the precinct. And I go, "Hey, how's it going? You know, how you been? Blah, blah." And he's like, "Oh, I'm good, good." He's like, "Look, listen, Steve, stay away from, you know, these karaoke." And he named the exact karaoke's we were doing operations in. And I'm like, "Why? What's up?" He's like, "Yeah, man, the Queens group got a operation going on there. And, you know, I don't want you to get jammed up in anything." And I'm like, "How you know?" He's like, "Oh, my friend, he's a lieutenant in the Queens group. And, you know, he told me about it."
You know, Steve, I got to agree with John because, you know, I find myself to be skeptical of everything, right? I would, if I was in your position, I think myself, I would be like, well, is this lieutenant really trying to bury this captain, or is he trying to test me? You know, and I would be questioning these things. And I also, I always said it, right? I always say that I use the same terminology. Like, you can't trust anybody in the police department. Like, rumors fly around. It's like cops always know the information before even the higher ups. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I would trust internal affairs to keep my identity and protect me, because nothing's a secret on this job. You always hear about complaints. Oh, this one made the complaint, or they're speaking internal affairs. So obviously there's leaks in the job, and no one can keep a secret. That's why I always say no one's going to the CIA. So at this point, like, that's what I'm saying. What was in place at this point to protect you? Were you wired up? Who was like your point of contact if you did fear that, hey, someone's catching on to you and your safety is at risk? What measures were in place? What system did they tell you? Sure, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so one, I was very skeptical also. That's why I gave my lieutenant a week, and he kept on bringing it up. So I knew it was real. Two, at the time I was very naive about IAB. I thought they were the good guys, where they're on the up, they're squared away, they fight police corruption, stuff like that, right? I didn't know they're the beast that they are, that I know they are now. The things that were in place were, I had two handlers. I had Lieutenant Seeger from Group 26, and I had Sergeant Owens from Group 26. They were my handlers. So if I needed anything, I would call them up. If I couldn't get in contact with them, I could always go to my CO, right? My CO would then contact their CO, which was at the time, it went from Pena to, there was another guy that came in for like 2 months, and then it went to Captain Esposito, right? And that was that. That's what I thought was the case.
Wait a minute. I just want to understand one thing. So your CO knew that you were undercover? Because you said you go to your CO.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because he's the one that asked me to go undercover.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so he was aware, though. Okay, I appreciate it. And
that was one of the things where it helped me in the precinct, because one, I had to still do my conditions and anti-crime work, right? I still got to go to the meetings. I still got to answer to the numbers and stuff like that, right? And then after that, off duty wise, I had to hang out with them, and in order for my get 28 to get approved and stuff like that, the CO has to help me out.
So I mean, a lot of what you're labeling out is it's not even that people are corrupt. I don't think. I think a lot of it is the system's completely broken, because you tell your CO goes to IAB, tells IAB. IAB comes to you. They send 2 guys to you. They give you to a group. That group has a commanding officer, right? That group has numerous people in it, not investigating the case, but they're fully aware of that case, right? Maybe they're not fully aware of all of the aspects around that case, right?
Right.
Then you have one CO in that group. That CO switches to another CO in that group, so that person goes about into the NYPD.
The CO changed 3 times. Yep.
So now the potential for leak just rises. Now you get a new CO. I'm sure you get new people in that group at that time, and then other people leave. So boom, they all go back out into the NYPD. Something's going on there. Something's going on there. Something they don't know, even if they don't know exactly what it is that Stephen Lee's undercover or whatever it is.
By the time my operation was done, which was like 2 years, by the time my operation was done, everyone in IAB knew my operation, and I would think everybody in like Asian J Society would know, because there's some people that were in Group 1 that were in Asian J Society, like the Ng brothers are in Group 1 and stuff at the time, and they hated me. They hated me.
So just on that aspect alone. So then you had 3 commanding officers all over, and now everyone knows something's going on in the 109, even if you don't know. I mean, and not only does it endanger the integrity of the case, it endangers the integrity of your life. Now, these guys might just be saying, hey, I know you hang out there. Don't hang out there, because they don't think their friend's dirty. I know something's going on over there, but don't get yourself in trouble. Don't get caught over there. Don't go to those spots. And, are they dirty cops? I wouldn't say that. I'd say they're just looking out for people. I'd say that the system that you just labeled out is completely broken. It's completely like you're sitting there. You're like, yes, I'll go undercover. Yes, I'll report corruption and crime. But you expect them to keep you safe, and they absolutely did not. Not only did they not keep you safe, they didn't keep the integrity of the case safe.
I thought they were going to keep me safe, and I have that recording that I put on my Instagram. I don't know if you guys heard it, right? But it's basically that's Lieutenant Seeger, and he's talking about how they didn't do a attack plan. There's nobody out there with me during the operation. There's no hospitalized car. There's no tech car. There's no ghost unit. Nothing. Right. At that time, I didn't even know I was supposed to have all this stuff, because I never got UC training before I went undercover. The only time I got UC training was after, like 3 years after I got UC training. That's when I learned about all this stuff that I'm supposed to have. A lieutenant out there, right? He's the head. He comes up with the attack plan and everything. And then you're supposed to have a hospital car just in case you get shot or something like that happens. You get rushed to the hospital. You don't have to wait for a bus. You got a ghost unit that's, sitting there with you, keeping eyes on you, right? Then you have a tech unit that's recording the thing for you. And then you have a sergeant vehicle that's, helping the lieutenant keep eyes on everybody. And I didn't have any of that stuff. How I found out that I'd have any of this stuff, because one day it's supposed to be a 2200 start of the operation. I take lost time. I go meet up with the lieutenant at one of the karaoke bars that were paying off the cops and where prostitution is happening. It's called CEO KTV. It's still in operation now. I go there. I meet up with the lieutenant. As soon as I walk in, the lieutenant's like, "Let me see your phone." I go, "The fuck you want to see my phone for?" At the time, I had a new phone, so I figured, oh, he just want to see the new phone or whatever, right? So I give him my phone. He's like, "Unlock it." I was like, "Why you want me to unlock it?" He said, "I just want to see something." All right, fine. I unlock it. He goes through my phone. He goes through my call logs, goes through my text messages, goes through my emails, my pictures, everything. At the time, they already had stopped giving me devices, in person, because it became a problem. They kept on meeting me at 7-Eleven. Their cover got blown by the cashier telling the cops that this guy is the cop, whatever, and people started noticing him. And instead, what they did was put an app on my phone where they could send me a text message and it'll turn on my camera or my microphone at any time. But so I would delete these text messages when they send it. And then I will also save the sergeant's name and the lieutenant's name on the different names in my phone, right? Just in case. I prepared. I was already paranoid because, my operation got almost blown out twice already, right? So he goes through my phone. He doesn't find anything. I'm like, "What the fuck was that about?" He was like, "We got a rat." I was like, "Okay, so what the fuck you going through my phone for?" He was like, "I just got to check just to make sure." I was like, "All right, so who do you think the rat is?" He's like, "I think Jimmy's the rat." Jimmy was one of the karaoke owners, was paying off the cops. And then I was like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And then what happened? He told me what happened and stuff. I was like, "Oh, okay." And, I got a bad vibe. So I was like, he might know something. So let me get them on point, right? So I go out. I'm like, "I'm going to smoke a cigarette and pick out a girl." So I walk around the karaoke. I go outside, smoke a cigarette. And I'm trying to call Lieutenant Seeger. I'm trying to call Sergeant Owens. Nobody picks up. This is like around 22:30, 2300 hours. Nobody picked it up. I call my CO. I have to call my CO multiple times. He finally picks up. I tell him what happened. He's like, "All right, let me call him. I'll get back to you," right? Nothing happens. So now I'm sitting there back in the room with the lieutenant, and I'm hoping that they don't fucking call me while I'm in the fucking room with the lieutenant, right? So the danger of it was this. We're in the confines of the 109. This is the special ops lieutenant I'm out there with. He's corrupt. We know that. He's with another person that he's always out with. I have no idea who the hell he is. Either he's on the job or he's not on the job. I have no idea. Like, we don't really have conversations. His English is supposedly no good, whatever. Then we're sitting at a location where it's unlawful, where there's prostitution, and these gangs run this place. The person that was paying off cops, his name is Jimmy Lee. This is the same gang that were involved in the bus wars, where they chopped up bodies and they put them in a suitcase and they put them onto the bus. I don't know if you guys ever remember that, by Manhattan Bridge in Manhattan. There was a bus wars where they chopped up a body and they put them in the suitcase and do them on the rival's bus to send a message, right? And this is the same gang that was involved in that. So they could have easily killed me. Lieutenant could have declared it as, come on the scene and be like, "Oh yeah, this is, probably some gang thing, whatever. He's probably a dirty cop getting paid off by these gangs, whatever, stuff like that." That guy, Jimmy, he would have had no problem with sending one of his soldiers and be like, "Yo, you take the fall for this," right? Then who would have investigated? The detective that was also involved in this, right? He was in a squad. He would have took the case and he would have closed it out as, yeah, gang violence, whatever. So that's how easy it would have been able to disappear, right? 3 a.m, I get home. And
Steve, before you go ahead, I just want to sum up because there's a lot going on here so people understand. Mm-hmm. At this point, which we know, we identify, we got a broken system here. Too many people have eyes on this. Too many people have ears. It's obvious at this point, even your cover is completely blown at this point. It's obvious, right? And at this point, now you're a potential target for these gangs.
Yeah.
And you really don't know who's who at this point, which players are involved.
Right.
So now we're getting to the point. Now your life is really at risk here. So please go ahead. I just wanted to sum that up.
So now I get home and the sergeant finally calls me back. 0300 hours, right? He's like, "Yo, Steve, you called?" I'm like, "Yeah, where were you?" He's like, "Oh, I just got to work, big guy. Like, I got a family too. I was, home with my kids and wife, whatever." I was like, "Oh, okay. If you were home, then who was out there with me?" He's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "The operation started at 2200 hours. Like, who was out there watching me? Like, who was out there watching my back? Because I was, this is what happened. My cover was blown. I thought, I thought my cover was blown. I thought, he had me, whatever. He went through my phone and everything. And I was scared for my life, right?" And he's like, "Oh, big guy, you'll be okay. You're a big guy. Don't worry about it. Nothing's going to happen to you." And I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? Like, you guys not even taking this serious. Like, the whole time, the whole operation is lack of resources, is lack of integrity, is lack of confidentiality, and it's like lack of interest. That's the most important part, is lack of interest. Because they know exactly who's who. Like the Lieutenant Kai from 72 Precinct. How I even know that there was a Lieutenant Kai from 72 Precinct? I was at an unlawful location, right? It was deemed unlawful by the XO, the 109. And at this unlawful location, I was with the chief's driver. We were there drinking, right? And the owner comes in. He goes, "Yo, Steve, there's a Kai. He wants to meet with you. There's a cop, Kai. He's in the other room. He wants to meet with you." I was like, "Who the hell is Kai? I don't know who the Kai is." He's like, "Yeah, short, bald-headed guy. You know who he is. When you see him, you know who he is." I was like, "No, who's that?" He's like, "A lieutenant from the 72 Precinct. He has, partnership in karaoke in 72 Precinct." And I was like, "Where?" He's like, "On 3rd Avenue, right by Costco." And I'm like, "That's fucking right across the street from the IAB building." And they're telling me how this karaoke, like, if you go there, there's straight up prostitution. It's not like regular karaoke where you actually sing there, standing there singing karaoke. No, we call them boom boom rooms, right? Which is like get high clubs. So people go there, they're high on ketamine or high on coke. They're there, with the prostitute, and they're like, hugging the prostitute, doing their head banging dance and stuff like that, and then like banging them in the room and all that stuff. And when you order cocaine or ketamine, they give it to you by the tray, by the brick, and they cut it up for you. And this is literally right across the street from the IB building in Brooklyn. All right. So I tell my handlers, I'm texting my handlers, "Look, this is what's going on. This is what he's telling me. He's in the other room. I have devices on me. I'm live. I could get him right now. He wants to talk to me, so it's going to be easy to get him to talk." Like, no, don't worry about it. I think Brooklyn has a case on him. Okay.
So Steve, before you go any further, when you're going to these clubs, right? You're technically undercover all the time, right? You're undercover at work, after work.
Yep.
But when you're going to this club, you're saying your handlers, are they aware that you're going to that club?
Yeah, they're the ones that told me to go.
So they know you're going. So what are you expecting? Like, are you assuming that they're outside of that club?
Yeah, I'm assuming they're sitting in the car outside somewhere. I'm assuming like they have like a ghost unit in another room, just like, drinking, pretending to be customers.
But they never told you that they did. I'm just saying, like, did they ever tell you that, or you're just assuming that? I mean, I would assume that too, but they never told you that, because what it sounds like they were home eating dinner or sleeping, and you're out there. You're out there on your own, basically.
I found out they were mostly sleeping outside in the car. It would just be the lieutenant and the sergeant, and they'll be sitting like somewhere in the confines of, but they're not watching me, or they're not listening in. They're not monitoring. They're not doing anything. Just sleeping in the car, waiting for me to call them, telling them, "I'm done."
And so after this guy takes your phone and tells you there's a rat, you freak out, obviously. Yeah. I mean, I don't blame you. You freak out and you're like, "Holy shit, I could get made right here." Yeah. And you call your handlers, and they're nowhere to be found.
No answer. Nowhere to be found.
And when you say you called the CO, you called the 109 CO, you called the IAB CO. Like,
no, I called Confortia because I didn't have Group 52 CO's number. Okay. I didn't have, Group 26's number. I didn't have, or the only person I had were Lieutenant Seeger and Sergeant Owens from IAB. That's the only people I had from IAB.
Holy shit.
Steve, I know communication is the most important thing for your safety when you're out there, right? When you're in uniform and you're working, the radio is your lifeline, right?
Yep.
If you're undercover, communication is key. So
Yep.
I understand you have two handlers, right? And I agree with John. At this point, it's like, are these guys home sleeping? Can we really trust that they're outside? I know that you want to believe that they're outside,
Right.
but do you really know at this point? Did you have, because you mentioned it, and I was thinking about that, did you have a ghost? Did you have a ghost assigned to you that when you go to these clubs, that there's someone or some ghost?
No.
For our active members and retired NYPD, they know what a ghost is. That's someone that goes with you, that watches you, that makes sure you're okay, that they're also on the cover. So for our outside law enforcement, they probably have something referred to that also. So you're out there solo. You don't have a ghost. Anybody watched you. So there's no one, God forbid, you are cornered and someone's questioning you. There's no one, because obviously you can't get on the phone. There's no one to contact your handlers, let them know, hey, Steve's in trouble. You got nobody.
Nobody.
You're a lone wolf at this point.
Yeah. And after that,
this is completely insane. This is insane.
So after that, that's when so there's a couple things that confirmed that. When I went to IAB after the operation was over, I learned that's what happened, right? And when the sergeant from the other group actually, was like, yo, they're lucky that nothing happened to you, because if something would have happened to you, they would have been a big lawsuit, whatever, how they did it was so fucked up, blah, blah, stuff like that. The other thing was the recording. It's the lieutenant himself saying it.
Where is that recording, Steve? I'm on your Instagram now. Is that your Instagram, Steve Leaf in New York?
Yeah, that's the one where the sergeant from Group 26 is talking about how the boss is retaliating against him. So the reason why I linked that to that is because I was on the cover of Group 26.
When did you post that, though? I'm asking. Like, what is the front cover of that look like?
I believe it was Sunday or or the day before, or something like that.
Hold on. I'm gonna pull it up. Hold on. Let's get that recording. But while I'm pulling that up, is so you're in there. Yeah. Now you're going to meet with some other guy. You're already worried. They're already saying that there's a rat there. Your lieutenant just took your phone, and now you possibly could get other criminality or something's going to go down. Mm-hmm. And IB's telling you, nah, don't worry about it. We don't care.
Right.
We don't care about the other.
Time they're trying to isolate the situation. The whole time they're trying to isolate the situation. The reason why is because they realize that they know, like I said before, they know about all the corruption, right? And that's not it. The cops claim. No, go up. The first one.
Which
first
one?
Top left. The cops claim liquor found in the car.
This one.
Second page. Yeah, it's second page. There's a second photo to that.
Is there a recording with that?
Yeah. The second page is the audio.
Okay. There's no music with this, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Click that arrow on next. No. Go back. Oh, man. You're just as bad as freaking Eric, bro. There you go.
All right. So here's the recording.
Yeah, click the speaker.
All right. Let's listen to the recording.
Steve, I listened to it.
All right, both of you shut up. All right, here we go. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1.
I can't tell you how many, they're asking me things like, Donovan was like, oh, you have to go over, you have to have a hospital car, you have to have this, you have to have that, you have to have, I said, I had all that shit. He goes, oh, you have to have radios and I'm like, what kind of tackling you think we do? Like, I don't understand, So I don't know. I don't know what their problem was. I spoke to Bro the day before about everything, and that next day, Jamie did it. She was fine with everything. So I don't know. Just whatever. I mean, but I got to figure out what to do with that money now. They spent money.
So what was that? Just break that down, because.
Yeah, so Donovan, that's Lieutenant Seeger speaking. That's my handler, right? How this happened was he called a CI because one of the karaoke places, one of the partners of one of the other karaoke places. They were trying to flip him. So they tried to flip him as a CI, whatever. He called them and the guy didn't pick up. So obviously went to his voicemail instead. And he didn't know that. He thought he hung up on the phone. He didn't know that. He put that phone back into his pocket. And, obviously he took out his regular personal phone, started calling somebody else, right? And had a conversation with somebody else. And that's how he got recorded onto that. Who put that online was that person ended up getting Eric Sanders as a lawyer. And Eric Sanders put that on his website, right? Because Eric Sanders put in a lawsuit for these karaokes for, I think it was like 150 million, something like that. I don't know. Something crazy, right? For these karaokes that were being harassed by the NYPD and IAB because during my operation, we went and shut down other places and ticketed other places to F up their liquor license so that it could revoked so that we could take out the competition for the one that was paying off cops. So in other words,
exactly what was being alleged currently is exactly what was happening. So what this Coney Island bar owner is alleging that happened under Eric Adams, the Office of Nightlife. This was going on the 109. Right. And so Eric Sanders sues these bars, sues the NYPD because he says they were targeting the bars who weren't paying protection money.
Correct. So what happened was Jimmy was paying us, right? And we,
what do you mean he was paying you? He was paying you?
Yeah, I had Jimmy paying me off because that was part of the operation. I had to get him to pay me off. Because at first the chiefs wanted me to say, oh, ask the other cops how much they're getting paid off and how they're getting care of, whatever, how often they get paid, how much they're getting paid. And I was like, are you fucking stupid? I can't ask them that. The conversation doesn't even go near that. The conversation is, yo, Jimmy take care of you? Yeah. All right, that's it. That's the end of it. We don't go, oh, what'd he do? How much he paid you? No, you don't ask me.
How much money were you getting paid?
I was getting paid $2,000 a month, every month, right? Per place. Plus, every time I did a special favor or whatever, you get $10,000 cash. And all this was given to IAB. And I found out,
not just you.
No, not just me. All the cops that were involved.
How many cops did you say were involved?
Yeah, that's how much money was involved in this. And the detective that I arrested been doing this for so long that he was able to buy a house.
How many cops are involved do you think of?
Huh?
How many cops are involved, are you saying?
There were at least 20-something cops.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Steve, we kind of...
That's in this precinct, and that was in the one line alone.
Steve, we kind of veered off so that we can understand. How do we get to this point, right? Because you said initially this is supposed to be an administrative operation, right? But you're out there doing this. How do we get to the point that you make the connection with Jimmy and he starts paying you? How did we get to that point?
So the place that we usually hang out are owned by Jimmy, right? So I'm the condition sergeant. I'm the one that's actually doing the liquor license checks and stuff like that. I'm going to these places, checking the licenses. I'm giving them summonses and stuff like that. So of course the owners are going to be, friendly towards me already, right? So it was easy for me to go to these places and then them trying to take care of me and stuff like that. But the reason why we wanted Jimmy to start paying me on record so that we could end up arresting him and flipping him. Because there were other places that were paying off cops, but they were like, pick one that you think we could flip. The other guys wouldn't flip, but Jimmy is a snake. He's one of those criminals where it's like it's all about himself, right? Self-preservation. So I was like, yo, this kind of character, his personality, he'll flip.
So Jimmy doesn't control all the bars that are working with him.
No.
There's other bar owners. Jimmy is just one character.
Yep. There's legit bar owners, right? Of course, they don't have as great business, but they do get the legit customers, the younger crowd and stuff like that. The people that go there and they meet girls, and there's legit girls that go to the bar and stuff like that and hang out and stuff like that. There's legit places. Then there's other gangs that open up other places. Yeah.
So Steve, at this point, right? So this kind of mirrors what's going on right now, the potential corruption that we have with Jimmy Caban and Ed Caban and this 301 system that we...
It's actually worse because Jimmy actually gave me drugs in uniform. I met up with him, right? Because the deal was to shut down his competition. Is called HR, right? Shut down the operation because
What's HR? What is that?
That's another karaoke. It stands for home run, but it's home run karaoke, right? So they were selling their liquor at lower prices, you know, to compete. So they were hurting Jimmy's business, whatever, right? And he had beef with them. So he wanted us to shut him down. So we went there and gave summonses, tried to hit him, trying to find drugs there, whatever, stuff like that. And we couldn't find anything, right? He said, oh, the building code is not up to code. It's supposed to be an office, not a karaoke. They fixed it, whatever. We couldn't, like, IAB couldn't shut him down. So the idea was for him to give me drugs, and then I'll plant it there, and then we could shut him down.
Well, I like to pull this back, right? Because the target right now is your special operations lieutenant. And this kind of mirrors what's going on right now.
Right.
And the special operations lieutenant oversees and audits the 311 system. So were there 311 complaints, and were you taking part in auditing the 311 system? So how was the special operations lieutenant? How was he hiding the 301 complaints with these karaoke bars?
90 yellow.
Did that tie into did Internal Affairs question you about those 301s? Were they looking into that?
No. It's not even on their radar. No. Never even came up. 301 calls.
So what is Internal Affairs doing at this point?
Nothing. It's all smoke and mirrors. They don't do shit. Nothing. So what happened was the plan was to flip him and then get him to pay the lieutenant. And, you know, we know that he was paying the lieutenant and the detective, but get him to pay on tape, on record, right? So we end up taking the drugs from Jimmy. The IAB undercovers went in, had the drugs on them. They did an operation sweep there, whatever. When they did an inspection, the undercovers did with the drugs. They arrested them with the drugs on them, and they used that as an excuse to shut down the bar, right? They shut them down. Went with the SLA. They shut them down, whatever, because there's a guy from the SLA that used to be a cop. Stravelli? Captain Stravelli? Let me see. Hold on a second. Charles Stravelli. He used to be a captain. He got jammed up for something. He got fired, and he went to SLA. But he's 32. So they all work together. And they end up shutting down the place. Jimmy gave me 10 grand in cash for it. And, you know, I gave it to the IAB. So, yeah, that kind of stuff happens legitimately also all the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, obviously, I honestly, I think we're going to need to go, you probably have a ton of stories while you were undercover and a million things happen. So I think maybe we definitely do another interview at some point and go into all those stories.
Yeah, sure.
But could you just bring us to what winds up happening with everyone and this entire corruption scandal? Like what happens, you know, so you uncover all this corruption and then what comes out of that?
Nothing comes out of it. What ends up happening was end of 2015, December of 2015, they end up arresting the detective. They bring him to the hotel room. They violate his rights also because I'm watching it from another room. And I'm like, damn, that's gonna fuck up.
Who's the detective? What are you talking about? Like what detective?
Detective Yam. So he was one of the guys that used to be in the old conditions team. He was also one of the cops I arrested in the 109. You want to skip everything, so you know the only two people I end up arresting was the detective and the lieutenant. Everybody else they get hit administratively and they get transferred out.
So since you're part of these arrests, at some point, then with all this information, at some point, do they uncover that you're part of this operation, and do you testify in court? Does this go to trial? Do you testify?
It does not go to trial. I do work with the ADA Leander. I worked with him and getting the evidence together, getting it sorted and stuff like that, go and do the evidence. And at first, IB only gave him one CD. One DVD, right? And I'm like, I don't see everything here. That's only maybe 10% of the operation. So he calls him up and he's like, I want everything. I told you guys I want everything, blah, blah. Sergeant Owens goes, okay, yeah, I'll give you everything. Goes back and gives him like a couple more stuff. And I'm like, I still don't see everything here. Then he called back and he's like livid. He's pissed off. He's like, I told you I want fucking everything. And why you fuck you guys keep playing games? Send me fucking everything. Or I'm gonna fucking come down on you. Then to come back with a big box worth of shit. I'm going to do this stuff, right? And I still don't see everything there. But at that point, he was already like, whatever, let's just go do this then. So I went through all that stuff with him. And then they fucked up on the case so badly that the DA had to give him deals. So it went from felony charges and 1 year jail time to misdemeanors and conditional discharge.
So the only two that got collared are the lieutenant and
Yep.
this one detective.
Yep. And the lieutenant was able to retire, kept his pension. And the detective was able to resign. Didn't get fired, resigned.
So he vested? So he technically vested?
Yeah, well, didn't get vested, but he resigned. So technically,
he
could go
wasn't
back.
terminated. So he doesn't come up as a terminated police officer.
Right.
And what happens with Jimmy?
Nothing happens with him. He's still out there doing his thing. They're not interested in any criminality part. Any of the perps, they're not interested in. You do with people that human trafficked. There was people raping girls, and the lieutenant, the detective, shit canned the 61 and stuff like that. Like girls will come to the precinct, right, and be like, "Look, I got drugged in the karaoke. I got raped. I woke up here, blah blah, whatever stuff like that." And detectives like, "Yeah, give me that 61 when you're done with it." Okay, I give them 61, and it fucking disappears. And I told IAB about it, and they didn't care. They didn't even follow up on nothing. Nothing.
You know, Steve, John's right. I mean, you probably have so many individual stories. I mean, you're out there doing these operations. We could probably do an episode on each story. So I don't want to skip too much, but what's really important to reflect on your experience and what happened to you. So how do we get to the point that you're doing these operations, you're working with these handlers without a ghost, you've gotten all this evidence you've given to IAB.
Yeah.
So we see the transparency. How do we get to the point that eventually this turns on you and you get jammed up? If you could go into that, like, how does this turn on you, and how do you get to that position?
End of 2015 and beginning of 2016 when we arrested the lieutenant and the sergeant, and I was like, "What are we doing?" This operation just got rolling, right? Meaning I just got into the inner circle. I just got cool with these guys. I'm meeting their hooks. I'm meeting the chiefs that are, that they're controlling the thing and stuff like that. I'm getting friends with them. I'm getting friendly with them and hanging out with them and stuff like that. And then
what do you mean the chiefs in the wait, hold on, the chiefs in the NYPD or the chiefs in their organizations?
There's the chiefs in the NYPD. Pizzuti, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. So was gonna meet Madry, but they shut that down. But there's this different story.
What was that mean? It's supposed
Madry is cool with Pizzuti, so there was stuff going on in Brooklyn at the time that Madry, were involved in, but they wouldn't let me investigate.
Okay, so you say that they end the operation way too early. They arrest these two guys. They bungle the whole thing. So now, where are you? What are you doing at this point? You obviously can't go back to the 109 now. Like, what's going on now?
So Inspector Moore that same day takes me to the next day he tells me to go into the Brooklyn office. I go into the Brooklyn office. He tells the PA there right there on the spot, take me out of the system. She wipes me out of the computer. I'm now a ghost. I'm now UC 5073. All right. And login, I can't log into the computer, nothing. Inspector Moore, though, he was actually probably one of the only bosses that looked out for me. He was there since what was the last IAB chief? What was his name? Before Resnick.
Campisi?
Campisi. He was there since Campisi days. And he was like, "Yo, Steve, look, I know it's a 2-hour commute for you. Just call the roll call girls in the morning. Tell them put you in the book. You don't have to come in. Be on standby. If we need you to help translate, whatever, stuff like that, we'll call you up. Just call beginning of tour, end of tour, whatever, stuff like that." Then, of course, somebody in IAB drops a log and goes, "Hey, why didn't Sergeant Lee have to come in?" So he called me up. He's like, "Look, go into the Queen's office. You'll sit there with Group 26, and you'll work with them. Find a TV room or something, hang out, whatever." Then somebody drops a log again and goes, "Hey, why doesn't Sergeant Lee don't get any cases? How come he doesn't go on call-outs?" So then they're like, "All right, put him in Group 52 with the other uncovers." I'm in Group 52 now with the other uncovers, right? Same thing. Kept on complaining about me, whatever.
So hold on, Mr. Steven. So you're in group. You're working with Group 26 while you're in the 109 precinct. This operation is ended. But now they're continuing to keep you in IAB. So
then I get transferred out of the 109. I'm erased from the computer, right? I don't come up anymore when you search for me. I'm now physically with IAB.
So now everyone knows at this point that you were undercover, right?
They knew from the very beginning, because once the whole thing went down, they were like, "What happened to Lee?" Because Lee, I'm very close with the lieutenant and the detective got arrested. So like, what happened to Lee? How come he didn't get arrested? So then now it's like, they look me up. I'm not in the system no more. So yeah.
Okay, so as I was saying, so then how do we get to the point that this turns on you?
Because the whole time I'm telling them, look, why we shut down the operation? You can't do that. The chiefs are just going to send some other cops in and replace them, stuff like that. And they tell me, "Steve, fighting corruption is like fighting the war on drugs. You take one drug dealer off the corner, another one's going to pop up." And I go, "Are you fucking stupid? You're going in with that kind of mentality. You're going in with a losing mentality to begin with, right? That's why you got to cut off the head." I tell them, "Look, you got to cut off the fucking head. You got to go after the fucking cartel. You got to go cut off the head, and you got to set an example. So at least the other cops, at least they'll cut out their stuff for a little bit. They'll lay low for a little bit. You'll stop the corruption a little bit, and then they'll be scared enough to not do it again." But they didn't want to do that. And then that's when they started giving me bad evaluations, transferring me around, bouncing me around the whole fucking time, changing my tour the whole time, picking on me, nitpicking, like, "Oh, you can't be on your phone for this. Oh, you can't be in the bathroom too long. Oh, you in the gym. Did you put yourself in the book for that?" And so other stuff. Like, it was crazy. Give me bad eval. They tried to give me a 2.5 eval after what I did. A 2.5. Meanwhile, you got a fucking.
So they stick you in Group 52.
Nothing at desk all day. He gets a 4.
So they put you in Group 52, is what you're saying. And what was your function there, like, at this point?
My function there at the time was just to hide out until the case was done.
But while you're there, you start getting bad evaluations?
Yeah. So while I'm there, I'm like, all right, I feel
you
bad.
have no function other than just to write out this
thing.
thing.
Brooklyn group, I have no function. To the point where, look, I couldn't even do anything if I wanted to, because I tried. I was like, "Look, you need help signing off on worksheets and stuff. I'm good with computers. I'm good at doing stuff. You want me to type up 49s or whatever? I'll do it." I can't even log into the computer
because you're not even in the system,
right?
So while you're there,
I had to call Group 7 up.
So they tell you there to hide out, and then they say you suck, and they start giving you bad evaluations, even though you don't have a function to perform.
I even have audio where I'm talking to the inspector or the lieutenant, whatever, and I'm like, "Look, what do you want me to do? You want me to go out as a UC, as an undercover? Because I have undercover training now. I'm a UC technically. If you want me to do tech work or whatever, or like, be a ghost or something, let me know. I'll do it." Right? They're like, no, you can't. You can't have any interaction with police officers. Okay, cool. So, I'm a sergeant. Give me a login. I'll sign off on worksheets. They're like, no, you can't do that neither. Right? Because you're technically not really on the team. Right? So then when evaluation comes, they go, "Oh, you don't do no UC work. You suck. You don't do no UC work, and you don't do no supervisor work. You suck." And I go, "What the fuck are you talking about? You're the one that told me not to do anything."
So at this point, man, you're pretty much sitting idle. You're told not to do anything. Yep. You're getting evaluated because you're not good at doing nothing.
Yep. And all this started coming down because a year later they took deals. Right. So I was at IAB for a year. I was at IAB for 2 years. A year into it, they took deals. And that's when they started giving me bad evals and stuff like that. And they tried to transfer me out. They're like, "All right, we don't need you no more. Pick a precinct."
So, Steve, do you think that you were targeted because at this point, because you said you were asking questions? I know this job doesn't like you when you ask questions.
I was being I was being annoying. I was like, yo, you got to go after the criminals. You got to go after the chiefs. You got to go after this. You got to go after that. You know, and they didn't like it. They were basically telling me, sit down, shut the fuck up, mind your own business.
Right, because at this point you're questioning that there's upper echelon that could be part of this probe, which makes sense. I mean, this is what John and I talk about.
In January 2016, right? Because I told you the lieutenant got arrested in January and the detective got arrested in December, right? 2015, December, and January 2016, the lieutenant got arrested. I think it was like January or February. A picture pops up on Jimmy's timeline, right? Somebody sends it to me and goes, look, and it's a picture of Jimmy with Bratton, right? And I'm like, what the fuck? Jimmy got to meet Bratton, like the PC, like he got an award or something? What the hell's going on? So I called my CEO up at the time, Conforti. I called Conforti up. I'm like, yo, what the hell? How come I didn't get to meet the PC? How come I didn't get a pat on the back? Like, good job, whatever, right? And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, yo, Jimmy's sending around a picture saying that he's best friends with the PC. That's why he's not arrested. And he's like, what the hell are you talking about? So I sent him a picture, and he's like, what the fuck? He was like, yo, I'll call you back. And I'm like, okay. And he calls me back. He's like, what is Jimmy saying? What are they saying? Blah, blah, all this other stuff. And I'm like, yo, he's saying he's best friends with the fucking commissioner, and that's why he not got arrested, and that's why his places are still open, right? And then when I went to the Department Advocate's office to, prepare to testify on some of the cops, the first thing they asked me weren't questions on how the testimony was going to go. The head of who was the CEO of the Department Advocate's office was asking me questions of the fucking picture of Bratton and Jimmy. They were doing damage control. That's all they worried about. That's when I realized, the whole system, IAB, Department of Investigations, the Inspector General's office, Department Advocate's office, the trial judge and stuff like that, they're all there for the damage control, to all save face for the department. That's the reason why they wanted to isolate the situation and keep it isolated, because they didn't isolate it, it would have been a whole big corruption scandal, and they would have had to call a whole new freaking NAP commission or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it would have been out of proportion, And at that time, de Blasio was trying to run for president, right? So that's a big no-no. You can't have a big corruption scandal come out when he's trying to run for fucking president. And Bratton, the rumor at that time, Bratton was going to try to run for mayor. So you can't have it coming out under his reign that, he's involved with corruption, especially when he has a picture with the guy who was fucking paying off cops. And you can't say he don't know, because he was arrested already for it. And we flipped him for it.
Wow.
So you can't say I didn't know.
So Steve, what ultimately happens in 52? What happens? What happens when you're in IAB?
They tried to tell me to pick a precinct. I called my delegate up, and I got a copy of the 49 where it says that I volunteered to go back to a precinct, and they wanted me to fill out the blank. And then Chief Lyons called back my delegate and was like, no. That's just a template. He doesn't have to pick just a precinct. He could pick any command he wants. And then, we'll put it in for him. We'll see what we can do. I put it in. And then when I try to follow up on it, they were like, oh, yeah, we did our part. We submitted it for you. Now it's your turn to see if they got an opening and put in for an application, put in for an interview and stuff. I was like, no. That's not how it fucking works. You told me to pick a fucking a detail. I picked the detail. Now it's your job to get me into one of the details.
So at this point, did you get special assignment pay? Right, that was one of the things.
Nothing. That was but everybody else around me who touched the case got special assignment pay and got promoted.
So,
like,
what did you get? When you were doing these, Steve, when you were doing these, the operations, were you getting? Like, how were you compensated? You were getting overtime for those operations. Like, how were you paid?
So I wasn't allowed to put in OT slips at the time, because the admin lieutenant who just retired, she just retired, but they were saying that she'll go back and to tell my lieutenant that I'm putting in overtime slips when these operations going on. So something might, raise a flag, right? They would have blew the cover. So they had kept track of it. So originally I submitted a 49 with hundreds of hours that I did. And the CEO, Captain Esposito at the time, was like, no, go back and redo this. Too many hours. I was like, what? But this is the hours I actually work. I mean, freaking My handlers got paid. You know, everybody else got paid that were involved in my operation. Why can't I get paid? They're like, no, there's too many hours. So I go back, I edit it, right? I get back to him. And he's like, it's too much hours. Go back and edit it again. So the third time I came back, and I was like, I'm not editing it again, man. Look, I'll do the right thing. I'll eat some of the fucking time, whatever. You know, I'll take it in time. But that's it. So it was like 100-something hours left on it. And they still wouldn't pay me for it. They gave it to me in time, Eric. They told me it's too late to go back and pay you in cash for these. So they gave it to me in time.
So you go undercover. You don't even get overtime. You're not allowed to submit overtime. They send you to 52. They tell you to not do anything. You're there. You don't do anything. They give you a bad eval. They tell you to pick a command. You pick a command. What ultimately happens? They don't. You obviously don't go to the command. You obviously don't go to the command that you request. Where do you go? What happens?
I am getting transferred to Police Academy Security Unit.
Okay.
Because I called Resnick. I was like, you know, this is fucked. So I called Resnick and I go, yo, I don't know if you know what's going on. I know he knew what was going on, but you know, you're gonna pretend like you don't know what's going on. Fine, I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna say, you know what? I don't know if you know what's going on, but this is what's going on, right? Inspector Rowe, Group 52, she's trying to fuck the shit out of me right now. I'm getting fucked for operations that you told me to go do, right? You told me I did a great job. You're not giving me SA pay. Not a problem. At least send me to a detailed choice so I could be safe, right? So I gave him a list of places and still nothing. I actually got GO'd now for something, right? And they tried to give me a hit for the GO because my lieutenant told me to do a double and that my GO was canceled and end up not being canceled. And they tried to give me a fucking Schedule B 2-day hit for it.
What was the GO for? Was it
my daughter getting EDP and I had to take lost time. My daughter got EDP by Lieutenant Dow from the ICO, the 109 at the time. They went to transfer to 111, Special Ops Lieutenant, and they EDP my daughter from school. And you know,
what happened with that? Was your daughter acting up? Why would they EDP in
11? She was in lab class and she was bored. So she looked at her friend. She was like this. I'm bored to death. I'm gonna blow my mind out. So the teacher was like, "Oh my God, Angelina, what are you doing?" And then, you know, she explained, "So I'm bored out of my mind. I want to blow my mind out." So they called me up, told me she was suicidal. So I was like, "What the fuck? She's suicidal?" So I take lost time, put in a 28. I take lost time. I drive down to the school. I'm talking to the teacher and the dean. She's like, "This is what happened." I asked my daughter, I'm like, "Are you suicidal? Are you okay, honey?" And she's like, "Dad, it was a fucking figure of speech. I was bored in class. I pointed to my friend. I went like this. I'm bored out of my mind. I want to blow my mind out." That's what I was saying. And I was like, "Oh, okay. You know, I understand it's disrespectful. Let me take her home. Let me talk to her. Is that okay?" They're like, "Yeah, you can take her home, but we have to notify the precinct, just in case, right?" Gotcha. Precinct comes, sergeant comes, school sergeant comes. I identify myself, and he goes, "Yeah, I know exactly who you are. We're sending her to the hospital." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Yo, but the dean and the principal and teacher says I could take her home." They're like, "No, we don't care. We're gonna EDP her." So we go to Long Island Jewish, all right? Emergency room. The doctor there is like, "Why is she here?" It's regular preteen, you know, behavior, right? Because at the time she's like 12 years old, it's junior high school, right? And I'm like, "Okay, can I get released?" She says, "Yeah." She discharges her. I'm ready to leave. The cops are still there from the 111. I'm like, "So can I go?" They're like, "No, you gotta wait for ACS. We notify ACS on you too." So I'm like, "What the fuck?" So ACS comes and they're like, interview my daughter. They like, "What the fuck happened?" And it's like, "Why are we here?" I was like, "I don't know. Ask them. Ask their boss," because I almost arrested the boss. That's why. So then they close out the case unsubstantiated and they let me go.
So I definitely like I'm just gonna like I'm gonna say right now, like if I got called to a school job like that, I'm gonna push for her to be medically evaluated 100%. But that's the extent of it. I'm not going to call ACS. Eric, would you have any notifications that ACS made in that scenario?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think it sounds like it's totally taken out of context. I mean, kids are kids. I mean, if there's no history, if there's a history, there's something else. So you got to look at the context of it.
No,
but it sounds like
first time.
That's the first time. I mean, kids are kids. I mean, the kid's saying she's not suicidal. Kids make gestures. I've done it sometimes. Like, oh man, I'm bored. But But it is a different world today with these schools, the way they act. It doesn't surprise me. But at this point, Steve, you said something that really piqued my interest. You said that when you went to the school, they said, "We know who you are." So
Yeah.
what do they mean by that?
Means Lieutenant Dolphin told him about me in the 109, because 109 and 111 are sister precincts. They share the same frequency and they're on the borderline. And Lieutenant Dolphin was the ICO in 109. He got transferred to 111 as the special ops lieutenant there at the 111. He was going to be investigated for trying to put fake EEO charges on my commanding officer.
So, Steve, oh my God, there's so much here. We probably need like 5 hours to really go over all this. But does this play a part into the downfall in your career? Does this have something to do with it? Is that
absolutely, bro? Yeah, man. Like, absolutely. They started fucking with me. They started harassing me. So I'm thinking I'm good at police academy. But what I failed to realize is that the police academy was actually Resnick's playground, meaning he teaches there on the weekends. He goes swimming there every Sunday. He has his own key for the academy pool. When he goes in, he uses keys. The pool is locked. He opens the door, goes into the locker room, changes, goes into this pool, swims every Sunday. That's his playground. And then when I went there, I started to realize I see some of these people I recognize from IAB building, right? From the Queens building. And a lot of them started getting transferred there. I'm like, why the fuck are all of them coming here all of a sudden, right? And they're all there to watch me. And I thought I was paranoid. I was thinking I was like, maybe I'm over exaggerating, because you're looking at me like, I don't know. It could go either way, right? Right. But then my department trial, they give me discovery. And in the discovery, they've been watching me since 2017, ever since I got to the academy. They taken out operations. They taken out warrants on my phone. They had undercovers go to the police academy to watch me, try to test me constantly. Since 2017,
Steve,
they've been trying to dirty me up.
You just jumped ahead. So when you get to your trial, so at this point, you say there's an investigation on you. This whole investigation is towards you.
Yeah.
And how long did that go on? Because you said, so at this point, you said 2017 a department trial.
Ever since I left internal affairs.
So, yeah, what year was that?
2018. So while I was at internal affairs, they were investigating me too. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
What was that investigation for in internal affairs?
It didn't say. It didn't say. It was just they just had operations to. One was like warrant to take out warrant on my phone. One was to just follow me around and observe. But you're just fishing for stuff.
So you just feel you were being targeted. You were being investigated. You don't even know why. Now you're at the academy. What happens at the academy? Do you stay there? Do you get sent to another command? Like, what happens when you're there?
I'm at the academy. My tour is being constantly changed there. They gave me a 10-day hit, right?
For what?
For cooping. So it was towards the end of the shift. It was day tour, right? So towards the end of the shift, there's 2 sergeants for the day tours. Me and another sergeant, right? They just got there, Sergeant Brown. He saw everything too. You can ask him about it. He saw everything, and he's a witness to it. So end of the tour, the 412 sergeant comes. I finish my tour, whatever. 4 sergeant comes, and he's getting ready for roll call, whatever. I'm like, all right, you guys are here. You guys are good. I'm gonna take my break now. I go downstairs to the locker room. I lay down. Right. Well, at that time it was like a storage room, a closet set up for people to lay down, chill out. So I'm chilling there. Right. I'm resting. I'm burnt out. I'm tired. I'm stressed. Then, lieutenant comes in and he's like, all right, what are you doing here? Blah, blah. I'm like, I'm just taking my break. All right. He makes it seem like I set up the whole area. Like, that place is not even my setup. It was there before I got there. When he gave me the tour, he was like, if you want to take a break or whatever, just hang out here, whatever. They gave me a 10-day hit for it. Okay. I figured I'll take the hit. I just got here. I don't want to make any waves. I don't want to get other cops in trouble, because then I have to go into who actually set up the place, who set up the bed, who set up this, who set up that. I don't want to get into it. I don't want to ruin somebody else's detail. I just got here. I'm not going to get waves. Fine. I'll take the fucking 10-day hit. Because I realized
So it's the end of tour. Wait, it's the end of tour. The new sergeant's there doing roll call. You're
Yeah.
basically in the lounge at that point, hanging out.
Yeah.
And then who shows up? Inspections just shows up out of nowhere?
No. My lieutenant shows up.
Your lieutenant shows up.
Yeah. Because the other sergeant that went there, you know who he was? He was Conforti's brother-in-law, Di Cristina. He comes in on the 4 to 12. He was in the 109 also at the time, right? And he actually refused to help us go undercover and find the rape charges on audio and corruption on audio. So he refused that, and he actually went to the Academy Security Unit also. When I got there,
did you have any other interactions with the lieutenant of you supposedly cooping or anything like that prior? Did he ever tell you not to be in there?
No.
This was the first time, boom, you get a 10-day hit.
He's the one that gave me the tour when I first got there. When I first got there, he gave me the tour. He was like, oh, if you ever, want to hang out here, sometimes the cops lay down here, chill, rest with on their break, But if you ever get tired, whatever, you want to hang out here, you could do it too, whatever, just make sure nobody's in here at the time or whatever, just shut off the light when you're done and fish, whatever. If you don't like this one, there, in our locker room, there's 2 bunks. And then there's another freaking lounge upstairs that you can hang out or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, he showed me all the spots. He was like, you can hang out. As long as somebody's watching, as long as there's a boss working, whatever, you're good.
Steve, I make my observations and my basis on what you're telling me, right? That's all we know. We only know what you're telling us. But based on what you're telling me and based on my own observations, because now John and I openly, we publicly say, we're not hiding from it, we have an open allegation against numerous members of the police department in this administration, including upper echelon of the police department. And what I've seen with this investigation with Internal Affairs, it's not an investigation to play out. It's more to protect the upper echelon of the police department.
Absolutely.
What it sounds like to me is that potentially you're a target because you were bringing up the upper echelon. At this point, you've been completely targeted. You've been positioned in a specific spot where they can keep an eye and starting to compile charges against you to build a case. Would you agree with that assessment that at this point they're starting to compile things against you to build a case against you to have you terminated? Because
absolutely. I mean, they didn't find anything. There was nothing for them to terminate me on, right? Yes, this place was definitely a place to monitor me because there's cameras everywhere in the academy, everywhere, right? And they're constantly trying to take camera footage and stuff like that, playing secret squirrel stuff when I was there. But I didn't care because I'm not doing anything wrong. So it's like, watch me all you fucking want, follow me around all you fucking want. You're just wasting your time because I'm not doing anything wrong.
Well, what's concerning to me, so you said that they got a warrant for your phone. So I don't know particularly exactly what IAB can do, but I know in the case of Sal Greco, where he's wrongfully terminated, they made up an allegation that supposedly had some ties to narcotics, which was a complete lie, to get into his phone. So did they do the same thing with you?
I don't know. It just says that, on the worksheet, it was just results of warrants on Sergeant Lee's phone, which is like my call list and stuff like that. So I just saw the results of it. I didn't see what they use as an excuse to put in for it. But you also have to understand, while I was at IAB, I saw some programs that not a lot of people know exist in the NYPD. So there are certain detectives and certain people on the job that are lifers, right, on the job, that have logins to programs where they could just punch in your phone number and it automatically gets everything without a warrant. It gets everything. The reason why they're able to do that and bypass it is because the NYPD itself doesn't go out and get the information. They pay a third-party company who does that, goes out and does all the hacking and research on your phone number, whatever, and then it comes up with like your phone number is here, is a bubble, and then it's a web, and then it's like who you call, who they're connected to, the names, addresses, everything. It gives all the information up. And I'm like, how the fuck you get access to that? He's like, oh, I've been here for so long, since this program started, whatever, and they, ever since then I had to log in. And then I'm like, how they like, you got a warrant for that or something? He's like, oh, you don't need one because third-party company. That's their loophole. Because the civilians don't have to get a warrant. Civilians don't have to do all that stuff. NYPD pays them for the information that they gather. It's like paying a private investigator or something. So they have means to do things. But I think the reason why they got the warrant was because they want a paper trail, right? To show, oh, we got a warrant, we suspected this, we got a warrant, and this is the result that we found, which was nothing. So
all right. So you're in the academy.
Yeah.
Still, you get the 10-day hit. What happens from there?
From there, like a week later or a month later, I forgot, they tried to give me another fucking 10-day hit for just hanging out in the locker room during my meal on the midnights. I already did my scratches. The inspector comes charging in, and he's like, comes straight for the sergeant locker room. He sees me sitting there, and he's like, "What the fuck you doing?" I'm like, "I'm on meal. What do you mean?" He's like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "This is where you guys told me to be. The last time they gave me the fucking 10-day hit, they're like, don't be there next time. Just, if you want to hang out in the locker room." And I'm like, "Okay, this is where you told me to be." He's like, "Did you put yourself in the book that you're on meal?" I was like, "No, nobody puts himself in the book for meal. Go look." So he goes upstairs, checks the command log, and he's looking. He's like, "Oh shit, nobody puts himself in for the book for a meal." So then after that, we had to start writing ourselves in the book for meal and stuff. So they tried to give me another 10-day hit for that because I saw the CD for it. But he ended up getting hit by a garbage truck on the way in to work, and he dies. And that CD goes nowhere.
Oh shit. Oh yeah, I remember that. That when that happened.
Yeah. Wow. Oof.
Yeah, he was on a motorcycle. Yeah.
So all right. So where are we then? So what happens? You don't get the 10-day hit. What happens? Do you stay in the academy?
I stayed in the academy. 2020, I ran for state assembly because I was like, I need to get in position of power to change where police can't police themselves, right? Because it's a conflict of interest to me. So I was like, I want to get into state politics so that I could create a state public entity to monitor the NYPD instead of NYPD monitoring themselves. I lose the election. My person that I was running against, the incumbent at the time, Ron Kim, he was actually anti-police. He was defund the police, abolish the police, and he got freaking
We're well aware of him.
And he got endorsed by NYPD.
Well, that's good. They love anti-police people.
NYPD auxiliary.
If they're anti-police, the PBA will endorse them. We learned that.
DEA, LBA. Unless they're in Long Island. If they're in Long Island, the candidates, then they endorse where they live.
Somehow if they're outside the city,
then they endorse pro-police people. But if it's in New York City where they work and they drain the coffers from, then they go for the anti-police people.
Yeah, so on social media, he's anti-police, abolish police, and stuff like that. And then he ended up donating 2 vans to the auxiliary team in the 109, and they end up endorsing him for that. He bought the endorsement. So I lose my election. He puts in allegations to IAB that I'm campaigning in uniform and all this other stuff. They try to give me a hit for that. It got to the point where, there was so much stress from over the years and all this gaslighting from running for politics and stuff. You think NYPD is bad and internal affairs is bad? Politics is worse, John. Politics is the fucking worst.
Well, that's why you didn't see me run. So,
it pushed me to suicide. And
sorry, dude.
Yeah, like my lieutenant came out to the parking lot. I'm sitting in the parking lot in the RMP, and I'm doing my scratches and stuff. And he walks up to me in the parking lot, and he just starts screaming at me for no reason. "What the fuck you doing sitting here? Blah blah." I was like, "This is what you told me to do when I first got here. Sit in this parking lot, rotate every hour to different posts, and scratch the posts, and just sit there for an hour and rotate. Because I'm at the fucking police academy. What the fuck you want me to do? Answer radio runs? There's no fucking radio runs. There's nowhere to go. I only go from parking lot to parking lot, right?" And so, he screams on me for that. And that day, that was the year where a lot of cops were committing suicide. All right. And I took out my firearm and, I took out the magazine and I unloaded and I was doing these dry runs and stuff. And then I was thinking about my wife. She was pregnant at the time. My son was about to be born. I was like, yeah, it won't be fair to my family and stuff. I was thinking about my daughter. I was like, not going to be fair to her. So that's when they started putting the apps the healthcare, the mental health care app. I went on that. I spoke to psychiatrists from Columbia Hospital and stuff like that, and I got therapy sessions. Then COVID comes, I get COVID, and I go into.
Were you full duty? Were you full duty the whole time?
Yeah, I was full duty at that time.
So you said you were suicidal, and the NYPD let you keep your gun and shield?
Yeah, until I went to the medical district, and they were like, "What medication are you taking?" And I told them the psych meds I was taking. Then they took away my gun. Yeah.
So Eric, he called Health and Wellness or whatever, the app, how are you app or whatever, and he was feeling suicidal, and they sent him to a psychiatrist, but he remained full duty the entire time. And did they ever ask you if it had to do with your work or your environment or anything like that?
Yeah, I told him.
Was the job involved at all, or were you just told?
No, job wasn't involved. It was just the guy from Columbia Hospital.
Just a guy from Columbia Hospital,
but
the job hooked you up
from the job, though.
But the job hooked you up with the
call center, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So okay, so now the job finds out that you're taking some type of medication. Now they take your gun.
Now they take my gun. Then now I'm assigned to the front desk of the police academy where nobody's really assigned. They keep me there. They're like, you can't leave the building, because I went to like the parking lot, try to talk to my cops, just to like release some stress, talk to them, see how they're doing, because I'm friendly with my cops, right? And then they're like, oh, you can't leave the building. I'm in a parking lot. You can't leave the building. God forbid something happens, right? Okay, fine. Then the next day they have was the women's appreciation thing, right? And the academy is full. It's busy. There's people coming into the parking lot all the time. They tell me go stand outside by the gate parking lot and wave people in. And I'm like, just yesterday you told me I can't leave the fucking building. Now all of a sudden you want me to wave people in with no vest, no gun. Okay. So yeah.
Steve, I just want to prove a point real quick. If you could just answer a couple of rapid fire questions, just so I could prove a point.
Sure.
Did you ever have a history of mental illness prior to this?
Absolutely not.
Were you ever suicidal prior to this?
Absolutely not.
Did you ever hurt yourself prior to this?
Absolutely not.
You ever attempted suicide prior to this?
No.
So here's my point.
You're stupid. That idea.
Here's my point. I've been saying this for the long time, and I appreciate you being honest and answering those questions. But that alludes to what I've been saying for the longest time. John and I both agree that it's the internal pressures of the NYPD that lead to mental health issues amongst members of the police department.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Because you're totally healthy, you've never had any issues, but now you've become suicidal, and it's not because of the job. Obviously, you had no problem. You were out there working nights. You're working during the day at the 109. At night, you're going out to these off-duty clubs doing your job. But now it's the internal pressure of the NYPD that lead to your mental health breakdown. And I can totally understand it. I was hit with 8 sets of administrative charges in a 6-week period, and no one ever came to check on me. Thank God I was never suicidal. I didn't want to hurt myself. I said, you know what? I'm going to beat this. But the same token was the internal pressures that I started to feel the walls caving also. So can I only imagine, now, here you are, you're serving, you're not getting compensated, you're not getting paid for all the work that you've done. You tell them, hey, look, you still have more corruption. There's more to do. You see it's completely suppressed. They've ostracized you. You're being completely targeted. So, of course, you're going to get to this point. I mean, everyone has a breakdown. I think that everyone has a line where it's like you've had enough. Yeah. And I'm sorry that happened to you, but it just shows that when we say it's the internal pressures of the NYPD that lead to mental health problems, you solidify that.
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, they know they have a playbook, right? Which is they break you down mentally. They physically exhaust you by overworking you. They change your tour constantly around to your sleep schedule is fucked up. They don't want you to get comfortable, right? And then they fuck with you mentally. That fucks with you physically a little bit and a little mentally. Then they fuck with you mentally by they keep harassing you, they keep nitpicking on you and stuff like that, right? And then when all this is done, they fuck with you financially too, right? Because the unions are not going to back you up. The union's going to play along with the job because they want favors from the job. They're not going to, help you out just and get on the bad side of the job. Next time they need something, they're not going to be able to get it just because of you. No, they're not going to do that for you. That's not what the unions do, right? So you're going to get exhausted financially for all these department trials and all these GOs and stuff like that, because you're going to want to get your own representative. You're going to want to get your own lawyer, right? Because you're not going to trust these unions. I didn't trust these unions since the beginning. So I had to keep on paying out of pocket for lawyers and stuff. And that exhausted me financially, especially after I lost my job and everything, and all this other stuff happened. So, yeah. And then they send you to jail on top of that. When they realize that you still don't kill yourself, they send you to jail.
So what ultimately happens now? Like what happens? Where are you? You wind up, tell us about that scenario. How'd you end up in prison?
So I'm in the front desk. I'm modified, right? It's my friend's birthday. He's like, look, let's go to the club, get some mirrors after COVID. I haven't seen my friends in a year and a half. I haven't gone out in a year and a half. I just had a newborn child. I just got, married and stuff like that. So, I just lost my election, go and do suicide treatment, go and do psychological treatment and stuff like that. He was like, look, come out, have a drink, say hi to some friends, will probably do some good. All right, fine. I go to Marquee, which is one of the clubs that Caban and them are extorting. I go to Marquee, and table ends up being misbooked, and they go downtown somewhere. I see one of the friends I know there, and I'm like, look, I know these guys, haven't seen them after COVID, whatever and stuff like that. And me just have a shot with them, and I'll meet you guys in the next spot. So I end up not drinking because I'm just saying hi to them, hanging out with them, talking to them at first and stuff like that. And then my female friend ends up getting sexually groped, right? Some drunk kid comes up from the next table. Some drunk kid comes up, grabs her ass, turns around, pushes him away. I go up. She's like, I don't know the guy. You just grab my ass. I tell the security guard. The security guard goes up to the guy and talks to him. He comes back. And he goes, yeah, she thought that she was somebody else. Fine, we give him benefit of the doubt. 30 minutes later, she passes by the same table. This guy from the table now comes around and grabs her breast. She turns around like, this is the second time you're touching me. You can't say it's a mistake this time, blah, blah. I tell the security guard because I see it. Security guard saw it too. We both walk up. He talks to the kid. The kid turns his back on her and turns his back on the security guard and goes, yeah, I'm good. This is my table. I'm not going nowhere. Keeps taking shots with his friends, right? So we're standing there like, are you serious? Like, you're just gonna get away with that? Like, you gotta kick this guy out. Call your supervisor, call your backup, whatever, and have him removed, right? So he goes on the radio and starts, calling for the supervisor, whatever. I tell the boyfriend, because, it's not my problem, it's her boyfriend's problem, right?
Yeah, he should be arrested.
Right. So the boyfriend's name is Ray, right? I'm off duty, so I'm not gonna arrest the guy.
No, I know, not you. I'm saying like the securities, they should call the police. He should have been arrested.
Right. Security guard should have called calling his supervisor to remove him and have call 911, hopefully, right? She ends up grabbing his shirt because he's like ignoring her and taking shots. So she's like, what the fuck? Right? You're not gonna apologize or anything? Grabs his shirt. I turn back around and I see them interlocked now, right? Like they pushing, pulling back and forth. So I push him back and I do 2 punches to the back of the head. No injuries. All right. Gets broken up by the boyfriend right away. We all get removed. He's walking out. He's complaining to the bouncer, why am I getting thrown out? Whatever. We're like, yo, what the fuck? We're getting thrown out. So we're going to leave anyway. Boyfriend's walking in front of me. I'm like, yo, where you going? He's like, I just want to ask him why he did that. I'm like, all right, cool. He broke up the fight inside. So I guess he's going to go talk to him. He's walking in front of me. He passes by 3 bouncers. I pass by 3 bouncers. I'm still walking towards him to the corner. I hear him yelling, yo, why'd you do that? Why you touch my girl? The guy smirks at him, throws up his hand, so he throws a punch, knocks him out. All right? Guy falls to the ground. I'm like, oh, shit. The bouncers turn around like, oh, shit, too, right? Because they're, like, in between us at the time. So I walk past him like, oh, shit, he's unconscious. Chill. Because he's punching him while he's on the floor. I'm like, chill, he's unconscious. Stop. He stops. We turn around. We're going to go back to the bouncers now. We turn around to the bouncers. His friends are trying to come out and jump us. The friends trying to jump us. The bouncers holding him back. He ends up getting in a fight with some other people. Long story short, I get charged with acting in concert. Because they said I was there and I didn't stop it from happening. I was like, there was 3 bouncers not stopping it also, right? You going to arrest them too? Like, no. All right, you charged me with gang assault 2 for acting in concert, and attempted assault and assault 3, right? Fine. Nobody else is arrested. You charge me with acting in concert with somebody else, and you charge me gang assault, and nobody else is arrested? Not even the person who actually hit the guy? Right? They run with it before my trial even starts, before I even get a deal from the ADA, I get fired. Go department trial, I get fired. 18-year career, done. Right? At the time, look, I'm gonna be honest, at the time, I knew Caban. Caban had, before he became first deputy commissioner, he had asked me to hook him up with Serpico, because remember the mayor, they wanted to give a medal to Serpico, remember? So I know Serpico from, Twitter and stuff. And I contacted him. I put him in contact with Caban and stuff like that. He was like, oh, thank you. I won't forget this, whatever, and stuff like that. And, I told Caban what happened. This is what this been going on for the past, 8 years or whatever. And he's like, all right, let me look into it. Nothing happened. I believe I actually got fired quicker because of that. Because I later on find out, remember when I said that the chief's just going to replace those people with other people, right? Replace them with a guy named Sergeant Liu, L-I-U, right? Sergeant Liu was investigated for shaking down somebody for $10,000, saying, if you don't give me $10,000, I'm going to arrest you, right? That person ended up calling internal affairs. While I am in internal affairs, I saw this investigation going on. He ends up taking Caban before he became first deputy commissioner, takes Caban to the detective I did arrest. He opened up a restaurant. Take him to that restaurant. They start drinking with the detective I did arrest and had dinner with him, right? Then he ends up going to the first deputy commissioner's office as a sergeant, right? And so then when they forced him off the job, he ended up being a property clerk for a little bit. So they're all connected. They all know each other. And I didn't know that at the time, but now I do. And that's the reason why I believed I got fired even quicker for that. But yeah, that's what happened. Oh, then the guy who ended up knocking the kid out or whatever, he ended up turning himself in a year later. Still wasn't arrested. He turned himself in a year later because he saw I was going to department trial, about to get fired. He pleads guilty to the 2 felony charges. He goes, look, you see me on video. It's only me on video. He's not doing anything. He didn't know I was going to do it. I plead guilty. It's all me. He confessed to it. They go, yeah, we're not interested in you. He gets charged with 2 felony charges, plead guilty to them, no jail time, repleader, stay out of trouble for a year, come back, gets repleted down, you get 3-year probation. That's it.
So, we were big supporters of you at that time for a few different reasons. One, normally when a police officer is arrested, I don't care if it's for murder, I don't care what it is, anything. Normally when a police officer is arrested, they are suspended for 30 days.
Yeah.
Then they are moved to suspended with pay.
Yeah.
Until their trial is commenced and it's over. And either they get restored if they're found not guilty, or they get fired if they are guilty. Now, what was a weird scenario for you was
I was suspended
you were fired before you were ever found guilty.
Yeah, I was suspended for 30 days. Then I was sent to the Bronx for road therapy. I was sent to the Bronx central booking, and then I was sent to Brooklyn central booking. But here's the crazy part, right? They wanted to send me to Manhattan central booking at first, and I told the lieutenant at personnel. I told him, like, look, call IAB and you better double check that because my case is in Manhattan. I don't want you guys setting me up and sending me to Manhattan DA's office and working with them, and then the DA is talking about how I'm threatening her and stuff like that. Trying to get her to shut down the case or whatever. So you guys,
huge conflict. Yeah, 100%. Right. That's how dumb they are. That's how incompetent they are.
Then he called them up. They're like, yeah, you going to the Bronx.
Yeah. So that was the one reason that we supported you, because we said, hey, this isn't whatever. And then I'll be honest, like, I was in IAB. I know basically everybody talking about. Every person you named, I basically know all of them. Mm-hmm. So I'll be dead honest. And everybody I know, not those people, none of those people reached out to me, but other people reached out to me and were like, don't support this guy, Stephen Lee. He was a dirty cop. And when he got caught, then he started going undercover. No. What do you have to say to those people?
No, absolutely not true. Because the whole thing started, you can even ask Conforti. Conforti is the one that asked me to go undercover with IAB, And the whole reason why I started was because my lieutenant tried to put fake rape charges on him. Yeah.
Steve, I think this is a crazy scenario, and it just shows that if in fact what you're saying is true, and I do believe you, because there's just too much detail to the story to be a lie, honestly. And from what I know, because John and I have discussed your case, and now I actually openly hear it, what John and I discussed is the same thing you're saying now. So in order for you to keep up this detail, it'll be a hell of a lie. So I believe you, and I believe you're telling the truth. Like I said, there's 1,000 ways to tell a lie, but only one way to tell the truth. And your story, it's all over the place because there's just so much to it. It's consistent, continues to be the same story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think ultimately we've proved through our allegation, John and myself, in retirement towards internal affairs, about stuff that's going on with the police department, tax we received, and what's going on with your case. Clearly, they cannot investigate properly and be trusted to investigate themselves within the police department. It has to be outsourced and needs to be an independent watchdog, unfortunately. And your case just shows that it's there to protect the upper echelon, which is why ultimately you became a target. And John's right. I agree. I've never seen a case like yours either, where you just, especially when you're under a case where you're innocent until proven guilty, you were never afforded that opportunity, and you were just terminated. I mean, we've seen cops that have been arrested for shoplifting. They're caught on tape actually shoplifting, and it goes on for 3, sometimes 5 years that they're suspended with pay until the case is finished.
Check this out, right? So there's a girl from Brooklyn the same year, in 2021, the girl from Brooklyn from the 7-2 precinct. She ends up shooting her female lover, right? And her female lover's new lover, right? She gets remanded to Rikers for 3 years, right? She got recently fired last month. She was on the payroll the whole fucking time, suspended with pay on Rikers.
Yep.
On Rikers, locked up.
Yeah, and I think the same is true for the kid who shot up the girl that worked in DCPI. I think he's in jail in Jersey now, if I'm not mistaken. And that trial's coming up, and he's suspended with pay. He's on the payroll. Yeah. So that was the first reason, dude. And then the second reason we got behind you and we said, wow, this is crazy, is that you got convicted of a misdemeanor assault, which we don't ever see anyone with the facts of your case that would get convicted of it. But the other thing is, I don't know anyone that's ever been convicted of misdemeanor assault that has not been previously arrested for a violent crime that has actually served any time in jail. And I know a lot of people that have been convicted of crimes, and including assault. And I don't know one person, including people with very bad records. And I don't know anyone. So like that was an eye-opening thing too. Do you think that had anything to do with your work as an undercover and your reporting corruption?
I think it is all linked together, yes, because the system is all one beast, one animal, right? So like the NYPD would be like the arm, the DA's office would be like the body, and the judge would be like the head, and corrections would be like, the leg or whatever. It's all one beast, right? And they all interact together. Sometimes they may not get along with each other. Sometimes left hand might not communicate with the right hand, but it's all one beast. Ultimately, they serve to keep the beast alive, the system alive, right? Now, the thing with the DA's office and all that stuff, and me being charged, there's video, right? And by the video, you can see I don't injure anybody. There is no assault, okay? And okay, you want to say attempted assault 3? Fine. But have you ever arrested somebody or done a report for attempted assault 3? No, because attempted assault 3 is harassment. That law needs to be abolished, attempted assault 3. There is no such thing as attempted assault 3. It's either you hurt the guy or you didn't, right?
Steve, I arrested some of the most violent perpetrators that were under arrest for multiple shootings. And then with that case, they also had assault cases going on, and the assault cases were dismissed, and then they got convicted for the shootings, or then they got they couldn't get enough evidence on these shootings, and they got away with it. And then when it came time for the assault case, they didn't even serve 90 days. Right. With already having a history of felony convictions. And the other thing I will say this, the other reason why I also I believe you. So when you were calling John from jail and we started to have some conversations, people had contacted me anonymously, you know, I won't give their names, but cops had contacted me like, oh, don't trust that guy. He's corrupt. So what's my ultimate question, right? Okay, what did he do? What did he do that's corrupt? And you know what they could tell me? Nothing. They couldn't tell me. So it's almost like these people that they're voting for Kamala Harris, and you ask them, okay, tell me why you're voting for Kamala Harris, and they can't tell you. So tell me some of her policies. And it's the same thing when it came to you, Steve. It's like, okay, if you say he's a corrupt cop, that's a big allegation to say. Tell me what he did, and they can't tell us.
A lot of that stuff came up when I was running for assembly, because they came from the cops that I investigated. One main guy was Benny Wong, right? Ben Wu Wong. He's in the 79 precinct now. He's still on a fucking job. He was writing fake summonses for the lieutenants when we were doing the inspection on the undercover work, and we were supposed to hit him with a summons or whatever, and we test them. He was supposed to write a summons for violation of whatever, and we gave him the violations, and he mistakenly, on purpose, put the wrong address so that the guy's liquor license won't get hit. And then on audio, you have me asking him, oh, did Lieutenant, Sung tell you what to do? Like, write a bad summons? He's like, yeah, he told me what to do. And I was like, oh, what are you going to do? He's like, oh, I'm going to write a different address. I'm going to change the address. You know what I mean? Like, this guy is out there doing that kind of stuff. And this is the guy that reported me to IAB. So what happened was when this fight happened, the guy put on social media the next day, this guy, Benny Wong, reports me, right? First of all, he texts the detective I did arrest. That's criminal association, right? Because he's a known corrupt cop. He's arrested for it, right? And fired and resigned for it, right? He communicates with him. They confer, yeah, that's me. They call IAB. Guess who goes out and investigates it?
Group 26, who you were.
Sergeant Owens.
He was your handler.
Yeah. He's in night watch in internal affairs. He goes out and investigates. Okay. You want to play coincidental? I'm in night watch. Okay, that's my excuse. Not a problem. But then you assigned to the Queens group. This happened in Manhattan. You assigned to the Queens group. The same group, Group 26, comes out and investigates, takes off the investigation from the 10th precinct and come out and fucking arrest me. Before they even look at the video, before they even freaking interview the witnesses and stuff. They come out based on our arrest report. They're like, all right, we're going to arrest them. And then when they realize, oh shit, we saw the video, like, there's no gang assault here, right? They charged me with assault 3. They gave me a disappearance ticket, right? They give them 2 extra weeks to try to fish for evidence, right? They took my phone. Before I was on the arrest, they took my phone.
They took your phone for assault 3?
Right. Why are you taking my phone for assault 3? I didn't use the phone as a weapon. I didn't make no phone calls. You don't see me on the scene making any phone call. You don't see me sending any text or using the phone. The phone wasn't even in the picture in the video, right? Why are you vouching my phone? They take it as arrest evidence. First of all, I'm going to get that thrown out. I'm appealing, right? I'm getting thrown out based on that because they prematurely took my phone and they testified to it. I got to give Sergeant Serenity from Group 26 some credit. He actually told the truth on the stand, right? When they asked him, oh, was he under arrest? He was like, well, no, we asked him to come with us, right? When I got to the precincts where I got arrested, right? I didn't get arrested in front of my house. So the whole time I'm asking them also, yo, you guys notify my command. Make sure they know that I'm not coming in because I don't want them to think I'm AWOL and they're going to send people into my house and stuff like that, freak my wife out and my kid out, right? But yeah, you're good. We notified them. You're good. I get out. You know what they told me? My wife tells me she's packed up and ready to like escape to Jersey because she said the 109 came to the house and said that they couldn't find you. You didn't show up for work and you might have killed yourself.
Hey, so
You're
Steve,
telling me you're not fucking with me?
Steve, so the NYPD charged you with gang assault, right? Because you need 3 people involved, and you need to actually cause serious physical injury to be a gang assault, not physical injury. You have to cause serious physical injury. Say this guy has no injuries and no one else was arrested. So I'm going to assume the DA's office.
The guy was injured. The guy was injured.
Right, but he didn't have a serious physical injury.
Huh?
He didn't have a serious physical injury.
I think one of the guys did have serious physical injury, but he was only assaulted by one person.
Okay, but so they charge you acting in concert. So the DA's office, did they try to indict you on that, or they dropped it and they went right with the assault 3?
No, they indicted me on that. They said the by me acting concert is because I didn't stop the guy from knocking him out. And I said, I
so
wasn't
you're not getting charged with the gang assault for the guy that you punched, because you said you punched someone twice in the back of the head. The guy that was knocked out by.
I just stopped these other people from hitting. The gang assault is not all at one time. It's supposed to be gang assault is three or more people stomping somebody out or beating them up at the same time. No. Their definition in the gang assault was, okay, 5 minutes here on this scene here, somebody punched the kid and is wrestling with this kid, punching them. Okay, 5 minutes later, somebody else is hitting this kid. Okay, another 5 minutes later, somebody else is hitting this kid. That's the definition. Oh, it's three more characters.
So clearly, there was trumped up charges here, absolutely, which makes sense. You're talking. But I do believe there's a nexus and a connection, and we can reflect that. I would say, how do you have standards? By comparisons, right? So I do believe there's a connection between the police department, the DA's office, and the judges in your case. Absolutely. I don't think it's a coincidence. And we can see it. We have Lieutenant Stephanopoulos of the NYPD, who's part of the khaki pants team, who's caught on tape stomping someone on their head during an arrest. And I've been in many arrests. I've punched people in the face. I've deployed strikes, but I've never stomped anyone on the head. And he was not suspended. He was modified. And we did not see any charges by Alvin Bragg. And typically that's something where we would see charges. So I do believe your story, how everything's connected. I do agree with you.
Yeah. So 2 questions for you. What do you think about all this? Like, is there an apparatus in the NYPD that you could actually report corruption currently? If you like, what's your message to like young officers?
Absolutely.
And like, what should be done? Do you have any solutions for how this could not happen?
So in the future? I do have some advice. I ran this scenario over in my head like a billion times, right? Like almost every day. And one, you don't have a choice. You have to report it to Internal Affairs. That was one of the charges on my department trial was failed to report corruption, right? To read that story is this. After my undercover work, whatever, I met a used car salesman guy when I was undercover. He was getting extorted by sex traffickers, and he got arrested by the 1-9 precinct. They turned him to a CI. He gave up somebody with a gun, right, to the FIO officer. FIO officer ends up going back and tells the perp, because he knows the perp. The perp calls him up and goes, "Oh, I heard you went to my boy in the 109 and told him I had a gun." All right. He comes up to me. He goes, "Look, Steve, I need help. I don't trust, the cops. This is what happened." I go, "You got to tell DOI, the Department of Investigations, or you got to tell Internal Affairs." He's like, "I don't trust them. I saw what they did to you. You're the only person I trust." So I was like, all right. I told my lawyer at the time. My lawyer told the Attorney General's office. And at the GO, that's what I told him. Yeah, I reported to the Attorney General's office. And I go, "Oh, okay. But as per patrol guy, what are you supposed to do?" I'm like, "I think it says something about Inspector General or the IAB." And they're like, "Nope, you have to report it to IAB. It's a must report to IAB. You have to report it to IAB." So my thing is, my advice is, do it anonymously. I know it's not the, right thing to stand up man way to do it, but to protect yourself. I wouldn't wish this upon my worst enemy. Even the cops I arrested, all the stuff they've been doing to me, I wouldn't wish this upon them. Protect yourself, drop an anonymous log, get a log number, right? And then report it to like, I don't know, like freaking the state IG, FBI, somebody higher, not nothing to do with the city, nobody in the city. Report it to the feds, something.
So, Steve, would you also not recommend anyone to pick the 109 precinct as their place of as their choice?
No, that's a beautiful place, bro. It's a beautiful command, man. It's a beautiful command. No.
No, I'm just trying to make a light of the situation. Listen, Steve, I'm so sorry this happened to you. I'm sorry it got to the point of your mental health breakdown. It's terrible.
Yeah.
So at this point right now, of course, it's the afterlife of the NYPD, and you served your time, which is absolutely ridiculous that you served that much time anyway, or any time for this. Because I compare the people I've arrested, John has arrested, we've never seen anything like this before. How's your mental health right now going forward, and how do you plan to turn this into something good?
My mental health sucks. It's I got PTSD from it still. I talk to a therapist all the time. I'm taking meds for it. What I'm doing, the battle's not finished, so I plan on appealing the criminal charges because I had insufficient counsel. They didn't even do a suppression hearing for the phone. They didn't get the phone thrown out. The judge was even surprised what he called a sidebar, and he was like, "You should have thrown this phone out in a suppression hearing, whatever, and stuff like that. You didn't do that." So I got insufficient counsel on that. I could appeal on that. Once I get this appeal, I'm going to put in a federal lawsuit that I planned on doing before they arrested me. I was getting ready to put in a big federal lawsuit on them with the Government Accountability Project, who Frank Serpico actually introduced me to. All right. So Serpico introduced me to the Government Accountability Project. We were going to put in a big lawsuit. And I actually put in a FOIL request right before I got arrested, a week before I got arrested. So right before I got arrested, they stopped all this. So now all this is just going to be put on hold. It just delayed it. I guess they thought it was going to get rid of it, but they're only delaying it. So, once I win my appeal, I'm putting in a lawsuit, and I'm hopefully going to get everything back. But right now, I'm trying to get my 3/4, which the medical board already approved, knowing that I was terminated.
Yeah. So could you just walk us through that real quick before we get off? So Steve actually gets approved by the medical board for a 3/4 disability from an on-the-job injury.
Yeah. So when I got jammed up, I was in Brooklyn Central booking. My lieutenant ordered me to go into the cell to search some perps. I got into a fight with some perps with 2 other cops. All 3 of us get hurt. I put in my Article 2 paperwork, get fired. 7 months later, they call me in, go see the medical board. I go, "Hey, are you sure?" They go, "Yeah, come on in. It has nothing to do with the other." Okay, fine. I go in. They approve me knowing that I'm terminated. They wrote in the letter too. 7 months after that, go to the pension board, and they're like, "Yeah, we're not giving it to you. We're not voting on you because you're not a member no more. We lack jurisdiction over non-members." Bullshit.
Steve, I just want to listen. We've been here almost 2.5 hours. I want to thank you so much for spending this time with us. We're definitely going to have to do more episodes because you have some great stories to really go into them. Yeah. I just want to ask you this one question before you depart for today.
Okay.
So John and I have made the allegation that our First Amendment speech has been suppressed or attempted to be suppressed by the upper echelon of the New York City Police Department, along with Eric Adams and this administration. It's also our opinion, and based on the preponderance of evidence, that the Internal Affairs Bureau, based on information that we have, anonymous sources, incredible sources, that the Internal Affairs was weaponized to open up a case against John and myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obtaining resources from the department, putting it out there. Do you think that the Internal Affairs Bureau is capable of that? I assume I know the answer to that, but do you think they're capable?
1,000%. I think that's their sole purpose. Group 1, sole purpose is to keep IAB members in check, meaning IAB members that do not go out and find stuff on people who the bosses call on, right? Meaning, like, if the chief doesn't like you, you forget to do the chief or whatever, they call IAB on you. They'll find something on this guy. Go test this guy, whatever. They test him. He passes his test. They tell him, go back out and test him again. Go back out and test him again. He passes again. Go back out and test him again until you find something. That's their job. And if you're an IAB and you go, you don't go along with that, then Group 1 comes and nips you in the butt. Right? Now, the whole thing, how IAB is set up, I want to bring this up real quick. How is IAB set up? IAB is the one that monitors police officers, correct? Uniformed police officers, narcotics, undercovers, everybody, right? Now, who monitors IAB? Group 1. Group 1 is also part of IAB. It's a group in IAB that monitors IAB members and captains and above. Now, who monitors Group 1? Group 25. Group 25 is also an IAB group. They do federal investigations on cops and Group 1. But since they're IAB members, Group 1 also monitors Group 25. And Group 25 monitors Group 1. They monitor each other. So it's a whole big fucking circle jerk. That's what it is. But yes, they are the chief's attack dogs. They are nothing there but damage control and, to isolate the situation, save face for the NYPD. That's why they cannot be trusted. And you can't trust cops, investigating cops. Unfortunately, you can't.
So just real quick on us, real quick. We filed a complaint against then Police Commissioner Edward Caban, NYPD Chief of Patrol John Schell, NYPD Deputy Commissioner Operations Kaz Daughtry, as well as the Chief of Internal Affairs. Do you believe that the Internal Affairs Bureau has any ability whatsoever to investigate that, or are they going to, or is their investigation going to consist of just covering up the allegations that we made, in your opinion?
They will, on paper, say that they investigated and said that nothing was found. They're going to cover it up. It's just like saying when Madry got convicted guilty by CCRB, right? Whole department trial was supposed to happen and all that stuff, and what happened? Nothing. We all knew nothing was going to happen. It's all for show. It's all smoke and mirrors. So.
Well, I said it would be my last question, and I have to ask this question. Then
no, I'm not a lady boy. I'm not going to hook you up with lady boy.
I spent a lot of time in Thailand, brother. So, how do they cover it up? That's really we know why. Mm-hmm. We know what the purpose is, but how do they do it?
How they do it is easy. So when Internal Affairs, they assign to one of the cops, right, or the sergeant or whatever. The sergeant would open up a case, right, a case file, and ISIS, their computer system, which is like the DD5, whatever the detectives use, but their system's called ISIS, right? So they'll open up a case, they'll investigate, right? They'll go out, do some surveillance bullshit, flip through some files or whatever. They'll put in their worksheet, put in some overtime slips, put in some get some UCs, go out and look for stuff, whatever, or investigate, test the subject or whatever, right? And then they'll come back and be like, oh, we didn't find anything, unsubstantiated, unfounded, whatever. And they close it out. And then this way, when it comes back, they'd be like, look, we investigated. We didn't find anything.
All right, Steve. Well, listen, I told you when you were in jail, I'm sorry that you're still going through shit. Obviously you are. I mean, I have PTSD just listening to you. I'm not even gonna lie. It's a crazy story. It's a crazy run. I'm sure everyone who listens to this podcast who wasn't directly involved in it, they'll be angry, but the other people are going to listen to this and say, what the hell? This is a crazy story. Yeah, you can tell. So I told you when you were in jail, I said, write a book, dude. And I think that you still should write a book. I think it needs to be documented. So before we wrap up, anything that we missed, anything that you want to let the audience know before we go?
Yeah. Tell those fucking cowards that are spreading those false rumors about me, say it to my face. Why are you hiding behind other people? Because during my campaign, as I was saying before, during my campaign, they were doing the same thing. And it was the same people. It was Benny Wong or other people from the 109 that were, pissed off that either they got investigated or their friends got arrested. So tell them go fuck themselves.
Well, you're absolutely right about that. They're cowards and they won't tell you to your face. That's listen. I love it. That's why we had a fake moniker known as All Cops Are Woke, and actually an unhinged cop behind that. We don't know what rank. Definitely a member of the service, or maybe several members of the service threaten the lives of our children, and that's where they crossed the line. We actually made the complaint. But they're cowards, and we still don't know the identity. And IAB still, at this point, refuses to release the identity of this unhinged cop who should not be out there with a badge and gun, who is now no longer with the job, but they still didn't release the identity. So they're cowards, no problem. In the end, turn something bad into something good. Steve, listen, brother, let's continue this friendship, continue this relationship. Thank you so much. I'm sorry that you had to go through this, but turn something bad into something good. There is a path for you out there, brother. It's going to get better. I listen again. I'm sorry this happened to you, but hopefully there's a reason for it, and maybe you turn something better into this, and maybe you could help other people, and maybe all of us together get this message out there. And Internal Affairs obviously needs an overhaul, needs to be changed in the New York City Police Department.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe that's the title to your book, Cops Investigating Other Cops, because it obviously can't be done properly. Thanks for so much for coming on today, brother. We're going to do more episodes.
Yeah, but one last message, absolutely. If anybody needs help or advice, my number and all that stuff is out there. You can scan this QR code over here. What is this? This QR code. You can scan the QR code and go this way. Scan the QR code, and my numbers and information is on it. You can reach out. I'll be more than happy to give advice and from my personal experience and stuff like that, because I definitely been do it.
And Steve, before we go, just tell everybody where they can find you too.
System Unfiltered. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. I'm all over the place. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. We'll put links to all Steve's stuff in the story of this too.
Yeah.
Steve, appreciate you joining us. Keep up the fight, brother. Keep up the fight. All right,
Stephen Lee.
Thank you.
Good man right here. Thank you, brother.
Guys.
All right. Find us Unfiltered, baby. We'll be back at you.
Check the package before you go.
You got it, brother. Remember, they're not women, they're lady boys.
How do you even know I was talking about that?
I didn't figure that.
All right, listen, you guys can flirt offline.
Hey,
we'll be back at you.
Don't be jealous. It's okay.
Tom Sullivan is the Republican, Conservative, and Common Sense Party candidate for New York State Assembly District 23. Tom is a financial professional who served simultaneously in the United States Army Reserve for 30 years and has now retired. His district covers Ozone Park, Lindenwold, Howard Beach, Broad Channel, and the Rockaway Peninsula.
Come November, I would empower our law enforcement agencies to go out there and do their job and not put them or their families or their pensions at risk for doing their jobs. We need drastic change in Albany so that we have a say in this matter, and they realize people of New York State will hold them accountable.
The Sullivan family has a legacy of service. Tom served for 30 years protecting and defending the rights of others. Come this November, he has earned your support. This advertisement's paid for by the Friends of Tom Sullivan.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?
Law enforcement professionals dedicate their lives to serving and protecting our community. But who's protecting their financial futures? That's where Laidlaw Blue comes in. Our wealth management platform is specifically designed for the law enforcement community. Laidlaw Blue is a division within Laidlaw Wealth Management, run by retired New York City detective John McDermott. His status as a retired detective uniquely positions him to establish a deep connection between Laidlaw Blue and the law enforcement community. Our platform is easy to use and provides a range of financial services, including investment management, retirement planning, and insurance solutions. With Laidlaw Blue, you can secure your financial future and provide for your loved ones. Our team of experienced financial advisors understands the unique challenges and opportunities that law enforcement professionals face. We're here to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning and achieve your goals. Laidlaw Blue. Secure your financial future today. Book a meeting using the QR code displayed or call us directly on 888 901 Blue. That's 888 901 Blue.